You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Once again to another exciting episode of Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. We are the premier podcast exclusively about wrestling in the New England area. My name is Matt Spectro, a.k.a. Tarzan Taylor. And at this point in time, I'm going to introduce my fellow host. He is a former NWA On Fire heavyweight champion. And he's a man whose favorite pizza topping is cheese. Julian Starr.
What's going on, everyone? Good morning, good night, whatever time you're listening to this. I just woke up. I'm exhausted. Just had a chaotic wrestling show. Had to do my special commentary. It was what it was, but I'm glad to be here, pal.
It's episode 12 of the show.
I know.
The first episode in November, so it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's fall. Getting ready for the big holiday.
I just can't wait till the summer comes back around. I cannot stand any of these holidays. I don't like the fall. I don't like the winter. Summer's where it's at.
All right.
Did you have a fun Halloween, sir?
Relatively. I mean, with a newborn, you can't really
You guys didn't dress her up or anything?
I had her first Halloween costume on, and then she crapped all over it, so it didn't really go out as much.
Amazing.
How's the feedback going on the show?
Which one? Oh, this show?
Sure.
Honestly, I didn't know. I just told you I did a chaotic show, so I wasn't sure.
Sorry.
So the feedback on the show has actually been very good. A lot of people on Facebook have been reaching out to us and telling us that they like hearing about the history of New England and whatnot, and they like that we don't pull punches. And, some people, Jamie Jamakowski, may say that we are a little too political with some people. We're throwing too many softballs, but that's just because Jamie hasn't been able to defend himself since episode 1. So,
So what he's saying is our guest this week, we should come out guns blazing.
yes, we have to absolutely nail him on the head, take him by surprise, and make sure that we get the job done, pal.
And other than us being exclusively only about New England Pro Wrestling, the greatest area of wrestling in the country, tell the folks what else our podcast is about.
Well, this podcast is about trying to get the truth. People in professional wrestling tend to be a bit too political, a bit too friendly. Well, Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way is looking to break that mold. As Tarzan and I sit down with various guests discussing multiple topics, but trying to gain the point of the truth. We will dig, we will probe, no matter how uncomfortable it may become. We will be sure to deliver truth, justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.
All right, and we would like to hear from you. Any guests you'd like to be on the show or any topics, please go to our Facebook, go to our Twitter. Let us know what you'd like to see, what topics you'd like to discuss, and we will do our best to make those happen. Before we get to this week's guest, are you ready for this week's trivia?
No, I'm never ready for this trivia because I don't know anything. My brain doesn't retain a single thing.
For those of you who are new, we ask Julian a New England wrestling trivia question every week. 1 and 2 is your record so far. Not very good so far.
Well, I'm going to turn it around today, pal.
I went a little easier this week.
Okay.
The date, March 29th, 1998.
Oh, our birthday!
Exactly. WrestleMania 14.
Oh, I got
The
this.
Fleet Center.
Perfect.
The only WrestleMania in history to take place in the state of Massachusetts. What was the tag team title match?
Oh, okay. I know what that was. The New Age Outlaws against Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie in a dumpster match.
Ding, 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 ding. All right.
That was my first ever WrestleMania. WrestleMania 14 was the first one I ever actually got to sit in on and watch.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was my birthday present, and I know that's going to surprise a lot of people, especially everyone who's like, fucking WrestleMania 14. But I was poor growing up, and so my parents... My parents couldn't afford pay-per-views and whatnot. They saved their money for weed and alcohol. So, I'm kidding. We honestly couldn't afford pay-per-views, so that was like a gift to me for my birthday because it fell on March 29th. So that was the first WrestleMania I got to sit in on.
All right, you're now at 500. Some people probably argue I gave you a little bit too much of a easy question there.
No one's going to argue that. I mean, it is what it is.
All right. So we're going to discuss kind of characters and gimmicks. Always been a big part of professional wrestling. Maybe not so much now, as it's not as much of a art as it used to be.
No, I wouldn't say. Like, now everyone... The way... I was just talking to someone about this last night. I forgot who, but gimmicks are almost like... They don't exist. Like, everyone to me now is like similar to an MMA fighter. Like, Seth Rollins is just good at his craft. Johnny Gargano is just good at his craft. So it's just like, they're like MMA fighters now, like just good wrestlers.
All right, we're going to get into all that with our special guest this week. He is a former Top Rope Tag Team Champion, a former Chaotic New England Champion, a former Chaotic Tag Team Champion, a former NEW Tag Team Champion, a former WXW C4 Champion. He was the winner of the 2018 Shakara's Young Lions Cup. And he is the star of the hit show American Grit.
Oof.
Here is Cam Sagami.
Welcome. Is it?
You just welcome yourself.
He welcomed himself to our podcast.
He goes, welcome.
Does the applause light come on now, or what?
Well,
you get that sound effect?
For you, we can.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm glad to see you here, Cam.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like you're going to be socially awkward today, but
No. I'm never socially awkward.
I've always been a big fan of yours. Honestly, I feel like
That makes one.
regardless what anyone really honestly says, I feel like you're a good kid, and I've always had your head and your heart in the right place. Just people misunderstand you.
Thank
All
you.
right, so this week we're going to discuss a little bit about you, but also the concept of characters and gimmicks.
Great.
I mean, I'm a bit older than both you. I grew up in the 80s, so that was the era where gimmicks were like the thing.
Did you bring your walker with you?
I dropped my colostomy bag, but I did not bring my walk. And then in the 90s, they kind of were prevalent, but there was a point in the 90s where gimmicks became an occupation. There was plumbers, race car drivers, dentists, things like that.
Yeah, that was the good time.
It was fun.
Now we're in an era where I wouldn't say there are no gimmicks and characters, but there's still...
They're few and far between.
Yeah, they're not as much as they were. We're going to get into a little bit about you, but how do you feel on gimmicks and characters and whatnot?
I think they're the foundation of wrestling. I think we've strayed very far away from that. And I think when you go to shows now, you see a lot of fans that are exhausted by the third match in because everybody's already done everything.
And everyone, I feel like everyone, to play on that, I feel like everyone's the same in their own sense. Like, Josh Briggs is kind of like a different animal because he has a different look because he's bigger than most independent wrestlers nowadays. But if you look at someone like AG established a different look and a gimmick and stuff. But if you had to compare like DL Hurst to Ricky Archer to Charlie Cashew, I mean, aside from a name, there's no gimmick. You know what I mean? As much as there's just guys.
Well, like there's
I
kind
agree.
of a difference between a gimmick and a character, per se. Like I say John Cena is a character, but he's not really a gimmick per se.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of, you're going to have to draw that line a little bit. A gimmick to me would be The Fiend, Bray Wyatt.
Yes.
And that's a gimmick. Trying to think of anybody else. I'm a little...
That's what I'm saying. There's there's no real gimmicks. Like there's
even the Street Profits are more like characters to me than an actual gimmick.
It's a name, but it's not a gimmick because they're like, okay,
You could argue Viking Raiders.
yes, the
You
Viking
could.
the Raiders are actually considered a gimmick because they look different. They're coming off as like their whole gimmick is how they look, and how they look is like a Viking Raider. You can't really play a Viking Raider unless you start like hemming and hawing in weird tones like the Bushwhackers used to, or like the Highlanders used to. There's no real gimmicks anymore because even the Miz, who he plays like he's like, I'm a movie star, but like I don't know, it's just not to me it's not a gimmick. It's just an extension of him.
There is a librarian.
Well, that's true. AEW does have a librarian, which gets pretty creative heat from what I see.
Well, and also there's a period where now with social media, internet, everyone's there. It gets in the day, like the Wild Samoans, they went around in everyday life. They didn't talk to people. They didn't speak English when they interacted with the public. They maintained their persona 24/7. That just doesn't really, we're going to get into that more later in the show, but that's part of why I don't think gimmicks are a thing anymore, because I just, you can't do anything now without everybody seeing it. So I don't know how you'd maintain that I'm going to be this 24/7.
Yes, I agree.
Now, if you could be, you'd probably be successful. We're going to get into that more later on the show. First, Cam, we're going to get a little bit about you.
Great. Can't wait.
If you can,
Sure.
tell us at what moment in your life professional wrestling was the path you were going to choose.
I think it was when Vicky Guerrero was in the wheelchair with Edge.
That's what did it for you?
No, I'm not even finished yet.
Okay.
So it was Edge in his stable with Vicky Guerrero, and Batista came out, and he grabbed the microphone, and he was all jacked up, and he had like on the leather jacket and like the cool sunglasses, and like I was probably in 8th grade at the time. I was middle school. And he looks at her, he takes the microphone, he goes, "I can't stand you. Why don't you roll your ass back to SmackDown and don't ever come back?" And I was like, wow, that's so cool. I want to be a pro wrestler now.
What a moment.
You know, most people like watch a match or see some sort of like gimmick they like, or like some people are like, "Whoa, Razor Ramon was cool. He made me want to be a wrestler." Or people are like, "I saw Sean and Brett, wrestle each other. That looked amazing. I wanted to be." Yours was a wheelchair spot, like a promo.
Characters and moments, man. That's what I'm all about. I guess to follow up with that, I think a close second would be when CM Punk won the Money in the Bank. Or he cashed in, rather.
Okay.
He cashed in. So what happened was Edge cut a promo and was, can we swear? He was shitting all over.
You can
he was
say
shitting all
whatever
over
you want.
JR. And as Edge was walking back up the apron, Batista came out in just jeans. He was shirtless. He was all, jacked up and stuff. And he just beat the crap out of Edge for like 5-10 minutes straight. And then Punk came out, and then he cashed in. And that was like his first world title run. But at the time, I was like, this is so cool. Batista's so awesome. Like, he should have won that. Like, that was like, now I'm invested in the storyline. Because I'm like, well, there's no way CM Punk can beat Batista. I don't think not a match I'd want to see now. But at the time, I was invested.
Okay, so you were invested. Were you invested in the storyline? Because those guys don't really have more or less gimmicks. You were just invested in a good story.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you a fan of the gimmick stuff, characters at that point in your life?
Like if I don't know who would have been gimmicks around that time with you.
Honestly, the closest one of my favorites that people kind of like don't think of is like the Brian Kendrick.
All right.
The Brian Kendrick was with Ezekiel Jackson. And that was a time where SmackDown was very bare, I guess you could say. So the mid card was empty, and the Brian Kendrick was one of the top heels on SmackDown in 2008, 2009. And it's crazy because he had so many good matches, and he was able to do so much character work. And I think people underestimate, or rather underappreciate, his work he did during that time. Because that's when Jeff was a big face, Edge was a big heel, there was Triple H that was like the champ, and like maybe MVP. But other than that, there was really nobody that jumped out to you as like amazing. And it was tough too because I was younger, so it was tough to stay up on a Monday night, So Friday nights was where it's at because I had that off. So I was definitely a bigger fan of SmackDown than I was of Raw at the time.
All right, so we fast forward a little bit. You're in 8th grade, so you decide, I'm going to be a wrestler.
Yes.
Was that in high school, or would you say that was after high school?
It would probably be a little bit later on. I had no idea about the New England Pro Wrestling Academy until probably my senior year of high school. And that's only because my friends who I worked with nearby in town had told me about it, and they were also wrestling fans. We all worked in a movie theater together, and they said, "Oh, we should all train." And I was like, "I'm on board. Let's do it." So it's funny because we all started together, and then one got a air quote knee injury. Never came back, right, sort of thing. And the other, it just wasn't for him, sort of. So I was the only one left. And I remember walking into the school, and Fury's like, and then there was one.
See, I don't even remember. I think I remember when you started, or maybe I was off with a neck injury. I don't 100%.
I was before that. I was way before your neck injury.
Okay, so yeah. I must have been around when you started, but I don't remember you ever having any friends with you. I just remember you. So, but
yeah, again, it was very brief. I mean, it's just so different because I think of where the school was when I started versus like what it's become. And I'm not saying as far as, good or bad or anything like that. It's just different because wrestling just has obviously changed in the past 6 years. It was just very different walking in there then versus now.
18 years old at this time?
I was, yeah. I had just turned 18.
And give us your first impression of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy and your just the first moment of pulling that curtain back and walking into the world of wrestling.
Excuse me.
This was when Fury had like the really, really bushy hair, like the really long and just big beard and everything like that. And Handsome was there too. He just got done with his shoulder surgery.
That's Viking Raider Ivar. Anybody out there?
Viking Raider
who doesn't
Ivar,
know?
Excuse me.
Well, we can't assume all our fans know he was Handsome Johnny.
But yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when he said that he said, I'm going to grow up my beard now. I think that's what I'm going to do. And like he had kind of that scruff. So like I knew him like before the beard sort of thing. So it's funny.
And shame on you if you listen to this podcast and you don't know.
I'm just saying, but he was there. He was in an arm sling.
Yeah.
Fury was there too. Max Bauer was there. Taven was there. I was with one other guy, like new kid. But yeah, that was really it. I just remember being like on eggshells because I was like, these are some really talented guys. And yeah, and Sherman was there too, of course.
And like most people, myself included, Julian, and probably you, do you have some preconceived notion of, I'm going to be a wrestling gas attendant, or I'm going to be a wrestling millionaire, or like, did you have like, I'm going to be this is going to be my character?
Did you have like an
gimmick?
idea of a gimmick that you were going to be, or that you thought I was going to be like this, I guess you could say, occupation?
No, honestly, I didn't. I just wanted to have orange and blue gear.
That was your only concern? You just killed Tarzan.
Okay, interesting. All right. And how did it go? How did the training go? You take to it?
I did. I stuck with it. I think it's really tough when you're just starting out and you're with a group of guys that are, that talented, and there's really not anybody else. Because the one who was slightly above me was Mikey Webb.
Okay.
And, Mikey Webb, he just, you got to learn to love his personality and his work ethic, I guess you could say. Because it's so, what's the word, I guess? It's so much determination and so motivated and so inspired that it almost becomes like unattractive.
It's annoying.
Like, get me away from this guy.
You're too into this.
You're too into this. Like, and yeah, I don't want to say he made me hate wrestling because like he is a good guy. He was like a big brother to me, and he really did take care of me. But I have plenty of Mikey Webb stories where he would just go above and beyond for absolutely no reason, for no one to see ever. It just made me so angry.
Well, when I broke into wrestling, I broke in with my best friend from high school. We both trained together. That made it a little bit, don't get me wrong, it was really hard, but it made it a little easier for me to have someone who was going through the same thing I was. I mean, your friend started with you, so at one point you must have had that, a little bit of a fallback.
Yeah, I did. I did have some friends starting out, but then they quit. And then I kind of, Pat was nice. No, Pat wasn't nice. I'm not going to give him that. Pat Bagonis definitely wasn't nice to me when I started. Definitely wasn't nice to me. Asked me every other minute, "Are you going to quit? Are you going to quit? Are you going to quit? You think you're going to quit yet?" I'm like, no, I'm not going to.
And Pat Matthews, to anybody out there listening who does not know who we're referring to.
Mr. PM.
Terry Thistle?
Terry Thistle.
There
yes.
you go.
Terry Thistle.
So this was 2011 that you were training?
Yeah, 2011, 2012, yeah.
All right, so you said, and I've heard this when we had Fury on the podcast, that what he was then is different than what he is now. So
yes.
Would you give me an example of what he was like then compared to how he is now? And when it comes to the New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
Oh, Fury then versus now?
Yeah.
I think Fury's way too easy on the kids. Way too easy.
But give an example, like...
Oh, my favorite one. I was just thinking of this. I think I was probably leaning up against the ropes. And like any new kid, like they're leaning up against the ropes. And the other guy comes up, goes to Irish whip him, but like stands there for like 5 minutes straight, just calling the next spot.
Yep, like an asshole.
So Fury just like slams down on the apron. He's like, "Stop!" one of his like extended screams. Like everybody stops. Like I knew I fucked up. So I remember he gets in the ring, he's screaming, swearing, and he goes, "Have you ever watched wrestling a day in your life?" Like his famous line. And the best thing he did was the best thing he does is when he actually does an example of how you look. Like he'll do it in a more exaggerated and mocking manner, which is just so funny. It's funny if you're not on the receiving end of it. If you're not the one who did it, you want to see it, but, right? So he grabbed the ropes and just leans back and goes, "Wrestling is fake. I'm an asshole." and I think Dijak was there too, and I think about that all the time.
You think you'd do that now?
No, I'm definitely not on the receiving end of that now, thank God.
But
I still am sometimes.
Would you do that now to a student if that same thing happened, do you think?
No.
No?
I think now it's just almost more of a disappointed dad.
He is a way more tame than that. That is a very animated Brian as opposed to now. I can tell you that Brian still tears into them.
He does.
But not in a... Brian's different in the sense that back in the day, Brian legit was almost drill sergeant-esque and was a little more free with his language.
Yep.
I mean, he used some word that 2019 would put him in jail for. So, but I'm serious. He was like a.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that later on?
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to talk about.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. You were talking about. I mean, I know we're kind of jumping around here, but you spoke a lot about. There was no social media. You could be a full character. People were invested in that. They did want to see a ticket to that. I think Twitter's hurt wrestling more than helped it in a lot of ways. Everybody today on Twitter wants to be cool. They want to express their opinion over everything, over every controversy, over every news topic, and it becomes overwhelming. Definitely overwhelming because, I mean, there's already a certain bias in entertainment today. So when you get in there, especially in wrestling locker rooms now, everybody is very opinionated about so many things, about politics, about different controversies, about how wrestling should be done. It gets overwhelming, and I think it turns a lot of people away when they do this kind of stuff on Twitter.
I do agree Twitter can have some negative effects. One thing I found when I was a booker, I don't know if I mentioned, I used to be a booker. Negative effect about social media was I'm trying to push some guy as a heel. I'm trying to make this guy an asshole that the fans hate. And then they'll go on Facebook. "Oh, I watched Monday Night Raw. Man, do I love that John Cena. I'm part of the C Nation." What fan is going to boo this guy who's professing his love for John Cena, that he's part of the C Nation? It really takes away from the character. I think there needs to be, if someone now lived their life 24/7, people would buy into that gimmick more than any other thing going on in wrestling. Right?
I agree.
Yeah, and a big problem that I don't really follow too many wrestlers on social media, whether Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, but Susanna does. And the amount of times that she would even say, I would love to believe, this was before he became the Fiend, but she'd say, I'd love to believe that, Bray Wyatt's this evil guy, but I just saw him post pictures with his wife on the beach holding their kid and yada, yada, yada. So, you can't, even if you wanted people to believe, they can't, because you're suspending.
You take them out of it.
Exactly. Once you start posting the reality of everything, then you're taking them out of it. I mean, there is a reason why certain people in this world are still believed to be a certain way. And so I'm going to use Tommaso as an example. Tommaso, when he was in the New England area, the amount of times that everyone said that he was batshit crazy used to freak me out. And when you look at him in the eyes, you'd be like, oh my God, this dude's fucking out of his mind. Then I get on a road trip with him around the same time everyone's saying he's crazy. And we're having a normal conversation, and I'm immediately going, why the fuck does everyone think he's crazy? And it's because he plays his gimmicks so goddamn well that people were like, he's out of his fucking mind. So then you use people like Brock Lesnar, who's on TV right now, who isn't primarily on social media. You tend to believe that he is the type of person that he comes off to be. So It is hard to, if you suspend reality, fine, but you take them right out of it once you go on Facebook and you start telling like you Tarzan, you just said, I'm this asshole who hates kids or wants to push women, but here's my wife and we're hugging our kid and woman and We're wearing matching sweaters.
Well, I'll ask you both. What would you respond? Because the typical response to today's smart mark would be, well, it's not 1984 anymore. And we all know it's not real, and you know, what would you say to people who say that? And that's why that doesn't happen.
No bullshit. Tell me why the Fiend's over right now. I want someone to genuinely explain to me why wrestling fans booed beyond belief when he didn't go over in Hell in a Cell, and why they've been dying for this guy to get a push and get over. Because Bray Wyatt's not believable? No, because people actually are invested in the character that he's portraying. Whether you think he's real or not, yes, people like the reality suspended. But you got to understand something is we're all grown up. Just like we know movies are fake and Santa Claus isn't real, we all know that Bray Wyatt's playing a character, but we believe in that character. And so we help suspend reality. Kids still believe that this shit's real. But if they go on their Facebook later and they see that the Fiend is now posting pictures going fishing with his little daughter or whatever, then he's going to be like, wait a minute, what the fuck's going on here?
Cam, what are your thoughts on that?
I think there's definitely two different rhetorics to talk about here. So one would be that when they discuss wrestling in the terms of, I don't know if you guys have spoken about this, but a big controversy a few weeks ago or last month was, wrestling is a performance art, and everybody wanted to be a performance artist. And it would be, for example, Cameron Zagami playing Club Cam instead of just Cam, and a lot of people were going off of that and saying, well, it can be just like a movie. It's just like any other form of entertainment. But there's a lot of parallels that are within wrestling, but there are also a lot of independent factors about wrestling that makes it different and independent from other forms of entertainment. And I don't think people get that. So people are very fast people want to make those performance art, parallels. They want to make those connections, but at the same time, wrestling is its own independent bubble and sphere. They can't operate the same.
I guess my retort to the Bray Wyatt thing, I don't necessarily agree with this point of view, but a lot of people would say he's over because now they see he's being pushed properly. He's being pushed the way the internet wants him to be pushed, and it would have nothing to do with his gimmick. I don't personally agree with that, but that's the comeback a lot of people would say.
I would say if they want to do that, part of me also says too is that if WWE wants to recast The Undertaker, why not? Why is that a bad thing? That wouldn't be the end of the world. If they wanted to really, if they really wanted to be hard on AEW or whatever, why wouldn't they just have somebody else dress up as Goldust? What's the point? Would a kid know? Would a fan fans would go crazy? People wouldn't stop talking about it, right? Didn't they do that with fake Razor Ramon?
Yeah, that didn't go over well.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head on why it's not like other forms of entertainment. If it was, why couldn't they just recast The Undertaker? Why couldn't they just recast Goldust? Why couldn't they just recast The Fiend?
Well, if
it's not the same thing.
If they want to compare it to a movie, but that's another thing I wanted to.
Makes an excellent point. I'm surprised.
Right, and I think another point I wanted to make too was that a lot of these characters are so static as far as they just remain the same for so long. And that gets boring. That gets very boring very quick. So, I can't really think. Bray Wyatt, he's another one that just went, all right, I'm going to go balls to the wall on something completely different and let's do it. And I think when people get a chance to do that, then it's a breath of fresh air and they can say, okay, well, let's see what this is about. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but you're still better off for trying it.
I'm going to use another example real quick is when Matt Hardy created this, this persona in TNA.
Yeah.
Super fucking over. The internet was exploding over this. WWE gets their hands on it. Then he pulls back completely. Now, I'm sure it was for legal reasons, but I think at one point they got it signed over to him or whatever. But they pulled back on it.
The broke Matt Hardy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Weird. He never got over because you stopped doing all the character shit that got him over, all the gimmicky shit. Weird how he didn't get over all of a sudden. He became just a normal mid-carder who no one really fucking cared about.
That's the thing is all these fucking internet smart marks will say how much they love him and all that, and then they won't be there to see that he got over because you believed what he was doing.
Yes.
We all believed that guy had really lost it.
Yes, and no, that's the thing is smart marks or most fans in wrestling nowadays it's like they don't want to admit they got worked. Like,
they don't. Of course they don't.
It's wrestlers are the worst because we're in the field. So when we're in the field and we're a fan of something, we don't want to admit we got worked because we're doing the fucking same shit and we're not supposed to get worked. We're supposed to understand the business.
I've just never understood that argument because people love to say wrestling's fake, wrestling's fake, wrestling's fake. And then a heel says something bad or does something bad and the internet is just outraged over it. Well, I mean, it's fake.
It's his job to get heat. It's his job to be hated.
Isn't it? Like because you can't, it's like any other argument. You can't be, you got to pick one. Are you an evil, conniving, evil genius or are you just a dumb idiot?
Yeah.
Right. Cause you can't be both. So, I mean, you got to pick one, right? That's like, I say that too. I'm like, am I begging? Am I like looking like, a desperate ex-girlfriend trying to get bookings or like, am I an egomaniac who, am I being selfish or like, do I have a big ego? Cause people like to put people in either two categories. I'm not saying like me specifically, but people like to do that with people like, oh, look at him. He's begging for bookings or, oh, he's too good to work the show. Well, which one is it? Cause you can't be both,
Yeah.
All right, so throughout the show, we'll be going back to this topic, but we're going to flash back to you for a little bit.
Please.
Your first gimmick, you were a member of Chase's Protection and Reinforcement.
Yes, I was.
And how did that all come about? And is that something you look upon fondly or not?
Was it called Chase's Protection?
Otherwise known as crap.
Yes. Yeah, so I think, and I've said this before to other people, that when you're 18, for me at least, I was so young and I just wanted to use my regular name and just be myself because I wanted to be cool, right? I wanted to be cool. Luckily, I grew out of that, but most people don't, and they just want to be marks for themselves, if you want to use that term. I don't really like the term mark, but they want to be fans for themselves. They want to be selfish, and I think that's a lot of the problems with wrestling today is that, before when you were booking shows, right, there were certain rules as far as like, all right, when you're in the opening match, like you don't go to the outside, you save some stuff for the boys so they have other stuff to go to later on the show, so that by match 3, everybody's seeing everything and nothing matters anymore, right? So, I mean, there were certain ways the show was structured, but now, today, it's this match is going to get me signed. I need to do everything at 100 miles an hour, and I need to look impressive, and I better get back to the locker room and be a GIF on Twitter, or else I failed. And that's what it is today. That's how success is measured in wrestling: is going out there, having the most in style match as possible, and then running back to the locker room, checking your phone, and seeing what people are saying on Twitter.
You're 100% right. I mean, you can't knock a wrestler of today's age. You can't knock them for catering to the business structure of today. Any smart business person will do that. Yeah, I agree with you. They do have to have a match that more or less is going to get them over, because right now that's how everyone's getting signed. You have 1, 2, maybe a few good matches with some ridiculous high spots and just 101 false finishes. All of a sudden, you're starting to get looks at all the other companies. Once all the other companies are starting to look at you, the internet's talking about you. Once the internet talks about you, then businesses are trying to, pull you in as under contract. So you can't knock them for doing it. But
I get it. I completely get it. I think what hurts it too is that if everybody goes out and has that match, that hurts the overall product of the show.
And that's where I wanted to play on, and this is where gimmicks can come into play, especially nowadays, is I've always heard wrestling described as a circus, as you have the aerial guys, you have the acrobatics, you have the clowns, you have the ringmaster, you have this, that, and the other thing. And I feel like wrestling is trying to get rid of clowns. You know what I mean? Like, they just want a circus catered to acrobatics.
I've spoken to Sherman about this, and he said the exact same thing that we've talked about, is that nobody wants to look like the clown. Nobody wants to be the idiot.
Yeah.
But if you can make fun of yourself and you can play the idiot, then you're already 10 steps ahead of everybody else.
I know it was a while back, and I'm sure if he didn't lose his steam and get upset and left, but if you think about people and if they had continued their stint, I guarantee you Sherman would have been like a very highly talked about person in New England, if not wrestling, Jimmy Preston, same thing. I mean, these guys are characters more than wrestlers, and I have not seen a reaction to a character on a chaotic show, if not any show, in a long time like I have those two. So, I mean,
Right.
it speaks that characters do work. It's just marks today don't want to fucking admit it because most people now can't cut a fucking promo. And this is coming from a guy, by the way, who couldn't cut a promo to save his fucking life and did not have a gimmick. But I was a fan of wrestling, and when you take a step back and you realize what made you a fan of wrestling, I fucking liked watching someone like Nails against Big Boss Man. That's actually what got me into wrestling.
Right.
Was seeing Nails, this fucking, jailbird, committing crimes, and then this cop going ahead and beating the shit out of him with a nightstick on a pole. That's what got me into wrestling. So if that's what I'm a fan of, I used to love watching The Undertaker come out. I loved that Shawn Michaels was this over-the-top, arrogant, all about himself guy with all this flashy wear. I liked gimmicks, and so you don't realize it till after. The reason why I like The Rock is because The Rock was a high-end guy. The reason why I liked Austin is because he was anti-establishment, and he was not the biggest guy, but he was willing to run his mouth and wasn't afraid to speak his mind. These were all things that we all felt. But to not get sidetracked, I honestly think wrestling today doesn't have any, like you said, doesn't have any clowns anymore. And so by the third match, you're like, cool, another fucking suicide dive, another super kick.
Exactly. And to that, I've always liked the spot on the fair shows that was like, sunset flip and you get pantsed and now you're walking around with your ass out.
Yeah.
And that would be a great spot. It's a great go-to. It's simple. It's effective, right? Crowd's laughing. But today you think about doing that and guys are like, no, I'm not doing that. It's stupid. It's not cool.
That's why I think Anthony Green is so good right now.
Exactly.
Is because he is a guy that still does all of it.
Right.
He is a guy that will go out there and have that new style wrestling match. He's also a guy that he knows his environment. He's like, all right, these dudes want to see me take a sunset flip, get my bum pulled out, and then start dancing and kicking ropes and holding my, you know what I mean? So Green gets it, I feel like.
He does.
I think part of this problem has been created, and you guys wrestled longer than I have. I mean, more recently than I have, and you're out there a lot, so you might know more. The bookers and promoters now are on the same level as the boys. They're not above them anymore.
No.
So if you say, hey, don't do this, and everyone does these type of matches you're talking, it's not like they're going to come back and say, well, I told you to do this, you didn't do it, I'm not going to book you anymore. They're not going to do anything. So, of course, who's going to change? If one of these bookers actually said, or promoters said, you know what, I told you to do this, you did this. Until you can do things my way, I'm not going to book you anymore.
I've always liked the idea. I think, and I had this discussion with Fury once, how if you were booked as a heel to put the babyface over, and if it wasn't done effectively, then part of your pay was docked. And I think today that would be just as effective because now if you're not doing an effective job, if you mailed it in, especially at a time where so many people are making air quotes again, livings, air quotes on wrestling, then maybe the product would be better off. But again, everybody says, I got to be selfish. I got to go out there. I got to have my own match, do my own thing and get paid and whatever. Right. And I think if promoters had that power, if they held that over the boys to say, well, I asked you to do X, Y, and Z. You didn't do X, Y, and Z.
I paid you to do X, Y, and Z.
I paid you to do X, Y, and Z. That's why I'm only paying you this now. Because now now the promoter has to worry about how to get the show back on track or what to do next show. And it creates a ripple in the plans.
Yeah, but then the boys might talk about you on Twitter badly, and then the booker wouldn't be like one of the popular anymore. And I think that's part of what a lot of it is. I can't speak for every company because I don't know a lot of the guys. I hope to have them on the show at some point. So put it in good. I'm not bashing any bookers. Come on my show.
It comes down to perception is reality. If that's what everyone is seeing, then that is the reality of the deal. And so a lot of times actions speak louder than words, and your perception that you create is going to be what the reality of everyone is. And so, yeah, if we're seeing this shit happen, no repercussions happen, they're still on the show because although they break the fucking rules, who gives a shit? And because they're still popular on, the internet, you're going to still use them, then fucking course that's what we're going to think. And it's going to be hard for you to come on here and verbally change our minds otherwise. So,
All right, so we're getting on a tangent, all three of us, myself
Yes,
included.
yes.
We're not really talking about characters or Cam, so let's go back to that. So you're part of, at first, you're Chase's bodyguard with
I am.
Pat Matthews. You're not actually wrestling at first.
No.
Would you say you're learning a lot from being underneath Chase, or you're just doing what you're told and not really learning anything?
At that point, because I was so young and I was so nervous on so many shows, and just the way Chase is very specific in how he wants things portrayed, how he wants things executed, where he would want his different managers as far as the crap members go. He was very particular with a lot of that. So a lot of it was me just freaking out and remembering my spot and trying to just stick with it. But I mean, I look back now and I said, okay, now I get why he did this. Now I get why he used me for that, which really helped, because now that's what I'm doing, especially like in a Club Cam character. If I have like a manager, or if I manage, or if I'm managing, or if I'm being managed rather, then I know where to put spots in order to get certain levels of heat that a lot of the other guys aren't doing. Because I mean, managing is definitely a lost art. It's just as much as charactering and gimmicks are. So I think when you put the two together, it's great.
Now, this could be wrong, but
Sure.
my research, I found your first match was a tag match. It was you, Pat Matthews, and Chase Del Monte versus... Actually, no, I think it was just you and Pat versus
Lish.
NXT superstar Oni Lorcan.
Yes.
Now, at the time known as Biff Busick.
Biff
back in
Busick.
2012. Is that correct?
That was my first match ever. Yeah, September of 2012. Yeah.
And how was that? That was a step from just bodyguard now, my very first match.
That was kind of crazy because they already had the structure of the match already, and I didn't really know how to do much. So they said, "Oh, go in there and put a heat on Biff," and I'm like, "Yikes!" Because that was very hard for me to do then. It'd probably be hard for me to do now. I'm not gonna lie, But no, I mean, Biff was great, and he always looked out for me, sort of thing. Especially when like wrestling, because he feuded with Chase for a while, but he was always good.
Now,
To me.
I can't speak for Julian, but my first match, I had a lot of my friends and family come. So this is your first actual match. Are you telling your friends and family, hey, I'm part of this tag team called Crap. Can you come see me? I'm going to have my first match.
No, exactly for that reason. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't Cam. I wasn't me. I wasn't in my orange and blue gear. I didn't want to. No.
I wasn't in my orange and blue gear.
Jerry's like, did you sell tickets? I'm like, nope.
I mean, honestly, like, I wouldn't want to either. I mean, why would someone... That's such a silly fucking question. I mean, I would never in a million years, if I was like, hey, I have to be part of this group Crap, and I'm going to be wearing fucking biker shorts and a tank top. I'd be like, no, I'll come invite you when I'm having like a legitimate high-profile match or some shit that's going to be, what I picture you in your head dreaming of me doing. Because, I mean, any one of us any single person who wanted to become a professional wrestler probably never thought that they were going to go through half of the shit they had to get through to get on a show. So I can promise you that I didn't invite my family to be like, hey, I'm going to be showing up in a suit to be a fucking
Agent Star.
secret agent of this guy.
Now, I was the booker at the time, and now I want complete honesty here. Did I give you any direction or tell you any feedback, or did I just let you just do your thing and I never even said a word?
I don't know. I think there was a lot of trust involved in Chase at the time. I think there always has been with maybe if you want to label them like the chaotic originals, like the Logans, Chase, Fury, Malonis, Handsome, Max Bauer, Taven too. Like, I mean, really at that time, like the locker room was stacked, right? So, I mean, on top of just being in that locker room and trying not to piss anybody off. Not that I would piss anybody off, but just
never.
just having. Well, we'll get to that. No, but just being in that locker room, kind of already just naturally feeling like you have to walk on eggshells, and then seeing how good these guys are able to perform at, and then making sure that you're able to execute all the things that you're given it was very tough. So I think you gave a lot of that to Chase to say, all right, you guys are good, like you know what you're doing, sort of thing, and basically the brief overview of the match.
Because I know myself, I can admit this about myself. I was notorious for people coming up having zero patience with anything, so I didn't know if that ever came across with you.
And after many years, you've not changed a bit.
All right, so it didn't last long. Then you became part of the Chaotic Action News team.
Yes.
The one weatherman, Cameron McLeod.
That was me.
Sounds so disappointed.
That's me.
Would you say you consider that a step up from being a piece of crap?
It was still nothing that I wanted to do, but I went along with it because I was like, well, I'm on the shows. You're right. I'm getting booked. Looking back, like, it's funny because at the time I was like, this sucks. This is stupid. But like today I'd be like, oh, wow, cool. Like, that's neat.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun. I think it's because you're older and you kind of like you kind of lose the magic appeal of wrestling. And you're kind of like, maybe not lose the appeal, but you kind of don't become so like ego driven.
Yeah, that's what it is. I can sympathize you with this. I appreciated being on the show when I became Agent Starr. I was like, fuck yeah, like I'm getting my foot in the door, I'm getting on the show. But yes, because we all go into wrestling, we all have this mindset like, I'm going to be what I grew up thinking I was going to be.
Right.
So when they go on and you're like, you're going to wear a suit, or hey, you're going to be a weatherman, you're like, fucking no, I don't want to be a weatherman. I want to be fucking Cam Zagami, the guy who casts magic out of his fingernails. Like, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, whatever you grew up visualizing, that's what you want to be. So yeah, you kind of create like this, almost like this prima donna, like, I don't want to do these parts you're casting me in. I want my own part. Or, that's not what I'm meant to be. So, yeah, I can sympathize with you on that one.
Did Cameron McLeod get to wear orange and blue?
No, it's funny because Cameron McLeod had a match once, and see that what was so funny is, especially with Chaotic, I would just be like so anxiety ridden about the sheets coming out because I had no idea what I was doing, no idea where I was going to be going, any sort of direction or anything like that. Maybe because I probably just wasn't told, and I was basically at the bottom of the totem pole at the time. But I remember just looking and it's like, oh, Cameron McLeod has a match against, was it Slick maybe? No, I think maybe.
You did wrestle Wagner, I remember.
It was Wagner, yeah. And I remember I'm like, well, what does a weatherman wear to wrestle? I don't know. So at that point, I remember like I just wore dress pants and like dress shoes because I'm like, well, I'm being a weatherman, right? And then somebody was like, you can't wear that. That looks Bush League or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I got like an old pair of Tony Omega's like old trunks. That I had to wear. Like maybe like the Biohazard.
Yeah.
Like the ones that have been passed around between like 17 different people.
I'm sure. A lot of nuts in that pack.
Oh, boy. But yeah, I wore that and I was like, this still isn't what I want to. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't want to. Because I wasn't invested at the time, I was like, I don't want to do this. But I did go along with it. And then I wish now if that had been given to me now, I would have been like, yeah, well, fucking run with it. Sure, why not? Like, I don't care.
That stems from time in the business. Like,
yeah.
Once you're done with the whole, I need to have a spotlight and I need to have like all this justification and I need to live the dream that I envisioned and I need to have all the opportunities that I pictured and yada, yada, yada. Like, once that's gone, you're kind of receptive to anything. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely. Once you kind of get your maybe 15 minutes of fame in a way, but once you get that feeling of like, wow, like this is how I made my create a wrestler on the video game.
Yeah.
And this was the storyline I had.
A weatherman?
Yeah. Yeah, just like that.
A lot of times you start to appreciate like the easier. I know this is going to sound so old to me because I used to think when guys said this to me, I was like, you're old and fucking lazy. But it's true. Like as you go on, you start to appreciate doing nothing in the ring, getting reactions and having fun as opposed to going out and killing yourself to get a Twitter gif.
Right, exactly. And, I think just to add off of that is I've always heard the line of it'll get fun once you stop caring. And I'm like, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. And now I understand what that means exactly.
Biff told me that years ago when I was stressed out too. Because I was always so jealous of Biff Busick because he had a gimmick. Biff Busick was the manliest man. He could cut promos, and he sounded so cool, and he looked so real, and everyone bought into it, and everyone wanted it. And here I am as a guy, I want to be on shows. I want to be a spotlight guy, and I can't because I'm a guy with a name. Like, my shoot name is Julian Starr Moreno.
Yep.
And
I know it was said like that.
Yeah. Well, Moreno. It's it's my half Puerto Rican twang I got there. But the fact that I was just a guy with a name and I couldn't figure out how to be a Biff Busick, I used to be so jealous. And so Biff got so much more recognition because he was a guy that you wanted to listen to and watch in the ring, whereas like I was just a guy. So
I just think it's different too, especially when we talk about like the newer students. You kind of mentioned it earlier, but I've had this talk with like Josh and AG, how like after ring crews, like they don't go out to breakfast, right? Like they don't hang out after. They don't do any of what we used to do. And
it used to be a buddy system.
There definitely used to be a buddy system, and now it's just different. And I can definitely see. I'm like, maybe I'm just getting older. Like maybe that's what it is, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
So a lot of guys when they're new and they will have a match or whatever, and they get a lot of input of you. Did you get a lot of input of your character should do this? You should do more with your character. Not much more about your match, but more about the character aspect of your matches.
That's one of the things I've experienced a lot is that especially when I was starting to come out with the hairspray and I was like 19 years old, 20 years old, and so young and so impressionable that like guys would give me advice, and looking back was probably shit advice. But to me, I was like, oh, yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
Oh, wait,
yes,
no.
sir. Yes, sir. I'll definitely take that in consideration. Thank you, sir.
You're going to bring that up. Now I need to... You got to give us
now-
at least one example of something now you would consider shit advice. You don't have to give the name if you're too embarrassed or...
No, I'm really just trying to think. But I mean, it's just generally speaking, especially when I would do the hairspray, or people would have ideas of like what I should do for the hairspray, or like, one of my few first pairs of trunks, or like the trunks I've worn the most, like had my face on them. So people were like, oh, well, maybe you can take it and do this, and maybe you can do that, and blah, blah, blah. And if you take every opinion with the same weight, like you're gonna like drown.
You're gonna drown and want to kill yourself.
Exactly. And it's gonna make you it's gonna make you crazy.
To play off that, just to step back, and I'm not trying to make this so much about myself, but I was a guy that did not have a gimmick, and so this is how important gimmicks can be, or just nuances that can make you a gimmick. So you were a booker at the time, and you're right. You can't take every advice the same weight because one, you're not going to make everyone happy, and two, not all of it is correct. Well, a lot of times what people do to play devil's advocate is they give you advice that worked for them. So what I would tell someone worked for me may not work for you, may not work for Tarzan, may not work for a student in the future, but I'm still going to tell you because it worked for me. But what happened is when I was wrestling, I was just a guy. And then I had this dream of this stupid fucking dance I did, and crowd popped. So I got booked on a show, and I went out and did that shitty ass dance.
I love it.
And after like everyone was like, what the fuck was that dance you just did? And I was like, I don't know. I had a dream that I did it. I did it like 2 shows, and then the crowd starts reacting, and I'm getting over, and yada, yada. Tommaso, I want to say, it was like 2 or 3 more people that just keep saying, stop doing that
I'm
shitty
sure
dance.
Brian.
Yes. I'm stop doing that shitty dance. Stop doing that shitty dance. That dance sucks. You look stupid. Stop doing that dance. So what did I do? I took that advice at the same weight I took every other advice, and I stopped. As soon as I stopped, I want to say it was 2 shows later, Tarzan comes up to me and goes, I need you to start doing that dance again because you're not getting over without it. So for some reason, the crowd fucking loves it. And I started doing it, and it just, the crowd would start joining me or start doing it before I even got into the ring. So you're right. Not every bit of advice is going to be
I think,
correct.
Especially when I look back at that, like I was doing the hairspray and getting a lot, and like just playing with the hair and doing a lot of that because like I had that huge bouffant like for the longest time, and I looked just so over exaggerated because like I had just this like baby face like features on my actual face.
You still do.
And it's yeah, I do. I think now I just look like an average looking dude because I'm older.
No, you look like a baby face with like, you're very soft.
Okay, all right. Well, this is why I tan too, so it kind of helps. But yeah, for the longest time, people said, no, you can never cut your hair. You can never cut your hair. And other people are like, you have to cut your hair. You should do it in a hair versus career match, and you should lose your hair, and you should get paid big money for it. And then all this just crazy stuff, which makes like it just made no sense. Because from one person, it's like, yeah, maybe you should consider like cutting your hair, and then other people are like, no, don't you dare, that's your moneymaker. I'm like, moneymaker? I'm being paid $25 a show, asshole. What the fuck do you talk about? It's my moneymaker. That's what I love, especially from the guys who are like, again, the guys twice my age who are telling me, look, kid, I'm going to tell you something. You can't cut your hair. This is money right here. Oh, is it money? Really? Putting $15 in my pocket. Thanks, asshole.
Do you ever think maybe, and someone's advice is like, this is what you should do, and I don't know if people don't word it this way, but this is advice what you should do when you're in Beyond, but not necessarily when you're at Chaotic, or not necessarily when you're at NXT or Ring of Honor. I mean, sometimes the advice is tailor-made for the crowd of the show you're on, and I don't know if people are specific to that is part of the problem. I think they aren't, and then it gets into these newer guys' heads that that's across the board. Do you think that might have something to do with it?
I think each promotion has evolved in their own certain way, especially like a lot of people say like Beyond. So like Beyond, when Beyond first started, that was like a super indie, out of the box, just outrageous, insane, crazy moves that got those short little videos on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media, and people were like, wow, this is crazy. Like, let me watch this match. And it really, like, you know, these were matches that were just so different from every other indie match that people wanted to see. And not every place can follow that. So for a while, people said, "Oh, it's," especially when I was younger, I said, "Oh, it's Beyond, it's Beyond, it's Beyond." Like I gotta do this. We gotta do this. Especially because AG and I had started in Beyond together as a tag team, like the Can-Man Connection, and a lot of it we tried to do a lot of crazy different moves, and it didn't come out very well because we knew we wanted to do all of this. We tried out these crazy moves that like we probably shouldn't have done, probably put in the wrong spot, but we were like, well, we got to do it. But now, I think now, especially now, where it's like, okay, no matter what, there is always going to be that indie match on the show, whether it be Beyond or a Chaotic or, you know, any place else. There's always going to be that indie match, and I think there should be, because that's what people like. But at the same time, is like, There's never, ever going to beat anything. You can't reinvent the wheel. A babyface and a heel, clear established roles, and having, you know, the best match from that.
All right. It's been interesting. It's different, I'd say. One of our more different episodes.
Yeah, I feel like there's not a lot of, we're typically pretty structured, but right now I feel this is just like a ranting session.
I feel it's more of a round table than necessarily an interview per se, which isn't a bad thing.
No, it's not.
But we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have more with Cam Zagami talking about Gimmicks characters. Also, we're going to be touching into Club Cam as well.
Yes.
As your starring role on American Grit.
Yes.
When we come back on Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.
I'm pro wrestler The Kingpin Brian Malonis.
And I'm referee Mike Crockett from the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing.
I spent most of my weekends half naked in front of throngs of people at VFW halls and Elks Lodges.
And I've watched. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Every week, listen to us tear down the curtain and tear down each other in the process.
It's the WPAN. Nothing more, nothing less.
New episodes Mondays on your favorite podcast app or on our website, thewpan.com.
What's your purpose in Port Royal, Mr. Smith? Yeah, and no lies.
All right then. I confess. It is my intention to commandeer one of these ships, pick up a crew and Tortuga, raid, pillage, plunder, and otherwise pilfer my Weasley black guts out.
I said no lies.
I think he's telling the truth.
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us.
Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if you told it to you.
All right, and we're back. The Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. We're here with Cam Zagami, talking about characters and gimmicks.
Thanks for having me.
And you've had a lot in
I have.
your time wrestling.
Yep.
Now, were you ever pitching your own characters or gimmicks?
I think it was at a later time where I was pitching different ideas. I think for me, what I had to understand was if I had an idea, if I had a character, just do it. Like, don't ask for permission, just do it. And I think that was what took a lot for me to understand.
A lot of people ask for permission to do gimmicks. Yeah, I think you just have to do it. I mean, AG didn't ask for permission to be retrosexual Anthony Green. He just said, I'm being retrosexual Anthony Green. You either book it or I'll go elsewhere.
Right.
At what point did you finally get to wear orange and blue?
I think it was after my time with the Chaotic Action News team where that kind of broke down, and then I was kind of floundering. And it wasn't until I got my hands on a can of hairspray where I was finally starting to, like, quote unquote, be myself. Because I was coming out to, like, look, I was this young kid, had like sparkly gear. My face was on my ass. I was coming out with the hairspray, coming out to larger than life. Like, I was that stereotypical, like, boy next door, pretty boy, whatever you want to say. A lot of things you can say here. Yeah. A lot of fill in the blanks here. But yeah, I was that character, and you know what? It worked out well for me, and it worked out really well for me.
All right. Well, it's a lot of trial and error. I feel characters and gimmicks.
Absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
Sometimes you got something works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it might work in front of Tupelo, Mississippi, but not necessarily in front of Boston, Massachusetts. So
That's right.
It's a lot of things like that. Now, for a long time in the world of wrestling, there was a certain I don't know if it's called a rumor and innuendo about you.
I can see you fidgeting in your seat. Just the amount of uncomfort coming from you for this question you're about to pitch.
About your
I can't wait.
Sexual orientation.
Oh boy.
And as we all know, in New England, there are a lot of guys that promoters and bookers that there's been a lot of rumors and innuendos about them as well. Plus a rumor that's why you got booked by some of them, not implying anything, just, it's out there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of passé and now, but has the concept of a gay character ever been pitched to you?
It has been a million times. And that's only because of, like I said, like the character I was being and part of just who I was as far as that young, good-looking kid, clean cut, blah, 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 fill in the blanks.
You're also very high maintenance, right? And what I mean by that is, like, you like to keep up with your appearances.
I'm very routine.
Yes, you seem like a very routine person. I feel like you always have your hair cut. You always have your, I don't know if you do your
You look
eyebrows.
very put together 24/7.
Yes, you always look like a put together person, where everyone in wrestling typically looks like a nerdy scrub who lives in a basement. So I think that's why you stood out so much, is like you look like you take care of yourself. Like, realistically, Richard Holiday looks like he takes care of himself. So,
Yeah, he's great.
You know what I mean? That's the same deal. But
So the idea was presented.
Yeah, I mean,
numerous times, you said.
It was.
Which is no surprise to me.
It was presented numerous times. I mean, me and AG, when we got into Beyond and even NEW, we were playing the sexually ambiguous duo. And it would be like where it's like, we go to charge in. It's like, if the heel's in the buckle, and then like we go to charge in, and like we almost do like a misdirection spot, and like almost kiss each other, and just really weird stuff like that. I'll be the first to tell you, like, I didn't like it. I did not like it. I wanted nothing to do with it. And it just made me mad because, like, I'm like, well, I already have like a gay following. It's just the plainest way to say it. I had a strong gay following.
Did they listen to podcasts?
I
sure hope
so.
I hope they do.
So do we.
Please push it.
I think especially with like the Club Cam character, like it's kind of gotten away from like that kind of appeal.
Because you look grittier in the sense that, like, you don't look like a very clean cut guy. You look like a sleazeball, like a dirty, greasy sleeve. And it, like you said, that's going to get away from probably the look that they're looking for, which
I'm glad, because I'll be honest here. I got I'm 19, I'm 20, 20 years old, right? You get into wrestling because, like, you love the entertainment, you love the wrestlers, you love the moves, you like the fame, you like the entrance, you like the music, like a whole 9 yards. Nobody gets into wrestling so they can have some 65-year-old gay man messaging you about your ass, right? And it would be funny, but like it happened time and time and time and time and time and time again. And the funny thing about that, I'll go here. The funny thing about that is that if I was a woman and I posted screenshots of those messages on Facebook, everybody would come to my defense of how terrible and awful those people are and how I'm still a good person. But if a guy does that, if I did that, then I would be conceived as a piece of shit, and I'm trying to out this gay man, and that I'm a pussy because I can't take a Facebook message.
That is 100% true.
And that is 100% true. And I've said this so many times before. So with those messages, I just ignore them.
Yeah.
Unless they wanted to buy T-shirts or merch or anything like that.
Mine wasn't as heavy as yours, but I got the same deal.
Yeah.
A lot of times got messaged about my ass, got asked to take nudes, got asked for, my underwear, all that jazz. So I got the same thing when I was in shape.
It just really bummed me out.
I feel like you got worse than I did, though.
I did because it got so much to the point where I was like, this isn't fun. Like, this sucks. Like, I hate gay people.
Wow.
You have that sound clip now. No, but
I love it.
like, but really,
Cam's and Kami's opinions do not reflect those of New England Truth Justice and the New England Pro Wrestling.
no, but it got so brutal to the point where I was like these guys are just trying to like ruin my life here. Like it's just constant, nonstop berating of, especially because let's be honest, like wrestling can be so sexualized.
Yes.
In any second of the match, I could pause frame a match and it could look like a scene from like some softcore, just positions or even selling or anything like that. And these guys, they take these screenshots and they share them and they talk about hot jobbers and big, bad, mean, handsome heels. And it to me, like I get disgusted by it now. Like I can't even stand it. I hate it. And look, like I have plenty of gay friends and that's absolutely fine. But like, there's a certain demeanor you have to carry yourself. You have to carry yourself in a professional demeanor, and many of my friends do, who are gay. But I'm just saying, like, for those fans, like that's unacceptable. It has been unacceptable. There's definitely I've had some great gay fans, right? But as far as like just wanting to show support, buy a T-shirt, say how much they've enjoyed watching me wrestle, whatever. I don't mind. But it's where there's that boundary. They push the envelope of okay, it's becoming inappropriate, and now it's like again like. When you first walk into the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, right? Yeah. You don't think like, oh, I'm gonna get my inbox flooded by gay men, and that's how it was. So,
well, there's a fine. I don't know if it's a fine. There's a difference between saying, "Hey, I find you attractive," and over the line inappropriate.
And then, "Hey, let me grab your dong."
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the girls could sympathize because
I'm sure they're
from creepy old guys that are
right. Well, what's funny is like a while. I think it was earlier this year. I think a lot of the indie female workers, a lot of the indie female wrestlers all compiled a book of like direct messages they've received from men who want them to do all these tasks and tell them weird things. And you've seen that, right, Julian?
No.
Okay. All right.
This is news to me.
Okay. So I think a group of girls, on like Twitter or whatever, like who are all in indie wrestling, they all compiled all their DMs and their messages and everything else, their private inboxes, and they screenshotted them and basically compiled them into a book. So everybody could say, oh, wow, men are such pigs. Poor you, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if I did that, if I made a fucking book of the things that people said to me when I was 19, when I was 20 years old, and I came out with that, people would go, you're homophobic, you're being rude, how dare you, you're a pussy, you can't handle it. And the thing is, though, is like, what makes me so fired up about it is because, like, people wanted me to be gay. Like, they wanted me because, like, they were like, oh, it would make, it would be so funny, and I was like, no, that's not me. I'm not going to invest something I don't believe in and something I'm not. And it made me angry. It definitely made me angry.
When you say it made you angry, do you think it's because you didn't think it would work, or was it just because of all the other negative stuff that was happening outside of the ring that was making you angry?
Like people considering it, I'm just going to be blunt with it. A lot of people labeled you as you're teetering or you're hiding the fact that you may be gay. And so you heard it all the time. Please come out. I mean, I think Brian Fury roasted it into your head, like, come out of the closet, come out of the closet. When are you going to come out of the closet?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be fine when you come out of the closet.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's one of those things that you internally are struggling with. I'm not implying anything.
Sure,
I have to cover every base here.
Yeah.
If you are internally struggling with it, I think bullying you on it is not the right idea.
Right.
And if you're not, and it's just something you don't like to be labeled as, do you think that is why? Because everyone has this outlook of you, and now with this background playing into it, do you think it's all just adding up? Or do you think that if everyone thought you were this manly man and then all this other gay shit's happening to you on the back end with all these fans, do you think it would have bothered you less?
I don't think it's ever like, obviously it's not something like I'm struggling with internally. Like
I figured as much. I just have to put it out there.
Yeah, right. No, and I think the problem too is like, you know, and maybe this is the part of me that sounds selfish, but like, I come from a great family, right? I come from a very fortunate family, right? I have a lot of things in my life that I'm very grateful for, and I have a lot of great accomplishments under my belt professionally that aren't involved in wrestling, that I can take care of myself. And I think people get jealous of that. I think people look at me and they go, well, Cam's 25 years old. He has a master's degree. He has a great job. You know, he's doing very well for himself. He takes care of himself. He looks healthy. He's happy. He has a great social standing with family, friends, and everything else. So when people see that, they get jealous. And I think the immediate reaction, the gut internal feeling is, well, yeah, you're a fag, you know? And it's like, okay. If that helps guys sleep at night, so be it. Because, you know, I've worked shows with guys who like sleep in closets. Like, I'm
I know you're exaggerating, but you're trying to say their living arrangements aren't exactly
sure. Yeah,
what they should be.
They're living in closets, but you know they're getting quote unquote cool bookings. And look, I get it. Like that's the style. That's what people do now. But really, I think, and again, I said it might sound selfish, but like I really think it's just jealousy because I love wrestling. I very much enjoy it. I love talking about it. I love the storytelling aspects and making character moments. But at the same time, like I don't need wrestling. I could leave wrestling tomorrow if I wanted to, and it wouldn't be the end of my life.
But I mean, do you think the idea could have worked or not? Like that's just really
I think honestly in 2012, 2013, yeah, absolutely. I think today in 2019 when there are active gay wrestlers on shows that are wearing pride flag and there's a very strong following with that. I think if I was a straight character, if I was a straight male playing a gay character, there would be moral outrage by everyone involved in Twitter, Facebook, wrestling, everywhere.
That's absolutely true.
And then it would, what would be funny is if I started it in 2013 and I said, oh, I play a gay character. And I kept doing that in 2019. Nobody would book me. Everybody would be saying how homophobic it is of me, how bigoted it is of me, how wrong I am, how awful I am, and I would never be booked again. And it's so funny because, guys didn't think about that.
All right. Well, I didn't know if that kind of stuff was going on in indie wrestling now. Well, you did say people are opinionated now. So
yeah. They are, yeah.
I feel like
I don't think it could work as a heel in 2019. I don't see how. I mean, you could work as a heel. A gay guy can be a heel. I'm just saying a gay gimmick being a heel because it is gay is just stupid and passe, and it's just out of date. It just never would work. I don't think.
And it's tough too because like I'm very opinionated, on different news topics and political issues, and I'm going to be honest, very few people share my viewpoints and my perspectives on certain things in the news, in certain politics, in certain controversies, topics, whatever. So especially in wrestling, I've just learned to just keep my mouth shut. And it sucked. It sucks because you're sitting there, you're listening to some asshole talk about something they don't know anything about, but it's like the popular opinion. So you're just, they're running with it. And you're like, it's not even worth my time to rebut.
You say you don't want to do it. They're not aggressively pushing this idea, are they?
No, I mean, it was never, but like, it was always the ongoing joke of like, oh yeah, Cam's a faggot, blah, blah, blah. Like,
now, back in the day when you were trying to get your foot in the door, is there a reason why you wouldn't try to take what was given to you and try to make it gold?
I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I'm not going to get booked because I don't want to play a gay character, all right, so be it.
Then wrestling's not for me.
Exactly. And again, it goes back to the point of like, wow, I walked into the New England Pro Wrestling Academy and everybody's going to pressure me to, come out of the closet and be gay and enjoy being gay because you have to be gay. And it was like, I'm like, this
based
is wrong.
on my perception of you.
Yeah. Well, you look like a gay guy, so you should play a gay character, which makes absolutely no sense. That would be like me saying, you look like a drug addict. You should play a drug addict.
You look like a gay character.
Well, okay. To be fair, let's play devil advocate again. I mean, Yokozuna was a Samoan who looked like a sumo wrestler, so they made him a Japanese sumo wrestler. So you got to understand, at that time, people were still coming from that old era who had that old mindset of, you look like a character, you look like this persona, you should play this persona. But I can understand why you wouldn't want to do a gimmick like that, especially with the bullshit you had to deal with on the back end from it.
Right. I would, there was a lot of inappropriate messages that were coming in my inbox that I just didn't appreciate. But yeah, I mean, that's not saying every single message wasn't like that. We had a lot of great fans. I had a lot of great fans, and a lot of good guys. So looking out for me.
Well, I mean, creeps are creeps.
Yeah, no,
Whether
seriously.
Heterosexual, homosexual, creep's a creep. That's not gonna. I don't think pro wrestling's ever not gonna have them.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, it's gonna be like that everywhere.
All right. So just to get back on track,
yeah, sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and rename this episode. This is Gimmicks and Ranting. But to get back on the gimmick train here. So after you were the weatherman,
yes.
You spun into a tag team with Anthony Green.
Yep.
I feel like you guys, Cam-Man connection. I wouldn't say that was so much as a gimmick. It was just two guys, Cam Zagami and Anthony Green, becoming a tag team, young up-and-comers.
Yeah, it was like young best friends.
Yep.
Like that's
wasn't really a gimmick so much. It was just a reality, extension of reality.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Right.
But then you guys kind of broke up, and then it was your job to start coming up with, correct? No one started coming up with gimmicks for you. It was now your job to start writing your own history and writing your own story. So what were some of the gimmick ideas that you had floating in your mind, and what was your mindset as to how they were going to get over?
I think there's always that typical line of, and then the bell rings.
I got you. So you're saying, like, here's a gimmick, here's an entrance, and then the bell rings.
For me, I would have these great character ideas. I'd be like, this is so much fun. This sounds like so great. And then I'm like, all right, cut a promo as it. And I'm like, this is tough. And okay, how am I going to wrestle as this? And I'm like, okay, again, this is tough. So it's just, and it might come across as too hokey if you really try it too tough. But, for me, I came up with a lot of different things. I came up with this like son of all character that everybody hated. I was like a masked person and like these big like mystical robes. And you know what? It didn't work. I'll be the first one to...
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll be the first one. So I think, real quick, 2018 was like probably one of my busiest years in wrestling ever. I was working for NEW almost every weekend, Young Lions Cup champion in Shikara, feuding with Anthony Green in Chaotic. So for me, it was just really busy. And on top of that, I was also in grad school too. So it was just a very busy year for me. And I was so burnt out. I was like, I need a break. Like I need to focus on school. Like this is getting so out of hand. So, I lost the title. I lost the tag team championships. And then I lost the Young Lions Cup. I was like, okay, I'm going into my capstone course, the last course of the grad program. And afterwards, maybe I can just pick it back up. So end of 2018, I kind of just laid low for a little bit. And that was like my last match in Chaotic too, against Anthony Green, never brought back. So I kind of just, and especially because Robbie Ego. So a few things happened. So one, I lost the Young Lions Cup in Shikara. So like that was just the end of that. Robbie E got signed. So we dropped the belts immediately and he really didn't have anything for me. And then 3, Chaotic put me up against Anthony Green. They liked the match. I was never brought back again. So I was like, okay. And then Beyond, I wasn't in Beyond at that time because me and Malonis were a tag team, but Malonis got signed to Ring of Honor exclusively. So, that was out the window too. So now it's like December. I'm going into 2019 and I'm like, I have nothing. I have nothing in the pipeline. And I don't hate it, but like I know I can still contribute value to a wrestling show and I still want to be a part of it. But maybe now is a good time because I graduated school. There's a lot of good things going on in my life. Maybe now would be a good time to, especially as I get more in a professional mindset for like an actual career, maybe now would be a good time to stray away from like cute little Cam and then maybe do something else. And so for a while, I was thinking of like a few ideas in my head. I'm like, maybe I can just be a complete character, so over the top, and just do this. And for a while, I was wearing like I watched Eyes Wide Shut, which is like a movie about like some like weird cult party, and they're all having like this giant orgy, but they're all creepy and just whatever. And people love to say like, "Oh, you're American Psycho. You're just like him," blah blah blah. And I said, okay, well, maybe I can take the best of both worlds and try to make those. And tried it on a few shows, and it just came up. Eventually, I just said, you know what? This isn't me. I think it's a great character for somebody else, but not for me. Right? I had two little like mages, I guess you could say, that had like the happy mask and the sad mask, and like there was so many cool things about it. I just didn't know where to bring it. And there was a lot of things I liked about it, but again, it wasn't me. And like I wasn't committed because it wasn't me, and I wasn't confident with it. So I didn't know how to act. And eventually I was just like, you know what? I just blew a bunch of money on I blew so much money on this character that I used for 3 months, if that. And I was just I said, you know what? At the end of it, I was like, at least I tried it out rather than thinking, well, what if?
Yeah.
Which I'm very glad I did, because honestly, you can ask the boys about like, the character's called Son of All, and they were like, it was stupid. You know, they'll say everything in the book about it. But at the same time, like I said, like at least I got the opportunity to try it out. Like at least I just tried it out and said it's not for me, rather than be like, what if?
There's a lot of stuff in wrestling when you come out with it at first, not just you, but anyone in general. A lot of times, if it's not a hit the moment you hit the curtain, people think it sucks.
Unsupportive, yeah.
It's very unsupportive. AG got over immediately because when he walked through the curtain, everyone loved it. It looked cool. So everyone was like, oh, Retro AG is the greatest thing on earth.
Yep.
But if he had gone out and people didn't react or it didn't look cool enough, every person in wrestling would have been just as unsupportive towards him.
Yep.
I think, Sherman's whole deal is a testament to this. You have to let things marinate.
Yep.
And let the crowd really digest something. If you watched, with the amount of debut time that you get with a new character, if you watched only trailers for the rest of your life, you may form a wrong opinion on movies for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
If I only watched movie trailers, which is about 2 minutes, equivalent to I have a 10-minute match. I have a 10-minute match once, and then I drop that gimmick. I have no idea where that could have gone. I have no idea what opinions I would have been able to develop. So I think your biggest problem, Cam, is believing or trusting the words of everyone around you way too much.
Right. No, absolutely. And that goes back to, caring about, I definitely care what other people think, but just going back to Sherman, like he kind of saw me with this character and he's like, well, it's something, but it's not you. And like Sherman helped me out a lot. Sherman was the one who came up with the Club Cam character.
Really?
And he pitched the whole thing to me. Like last year, like early last year. And I go, no, like I'm not going to do it. And he goes, why? And I'm like, well, I'm booked everywhere as Cam Zagami right now. Like I don't need to do it. And then when I started getting like just naturally unbooked from all these places, then I was like, okay, well maybe now's a good chance to try it out. So it was just understanding like, Sherman's always been good to me. Like first day I walked into, I know people have very strong opinions on Sherman, especially like in New England. But Sherman's always been super helpful to me. Always been like a big brother, always looking out. Like he always meant well. Even if he came across in the locker room, like, he said something mean or, whatever. The boys
Sherman's just an extrovert, and wrestling is loaded with introverts. And so none of us want to talk to anyone. Like we're friendly with each other, but realistically, no one wants to deal with each other. That's why everyone's very quiet and reserved.
Yeah.
Sherman was the life of the party, and that irritates an introvert beyond belief. For some reason, immediate anger. So everyone hated him for it. That, and Sherman wasn't your typical, like, let me keep my mouth shut, speak when spoken to, respectful guy. He was like, I'm a fucking adult, and you're not going to treat me like I'm a fucking 16-year-old boy still in school.
Yeah.
Which, again, this comes back to the whole, I've ranted over and over again, wrestling's the weirdest fucking environment. You can't speak until spoken to if you haven't put in your time in and yada, yada, yada. But that's, I think, why negative opinions. Do I believe Sherman didn't humble himself enough and believed way too highly into himself and his hype? Yes. He should have stayed a little more humble, which would have helped level him some. But Sherman's just an extrovert in an introverted world, and that's why I think people were irritated with him.
I think too, it was like, I talked about how stacked the locker room was back in Chaotic, like when I started. And again, like Taven, Fury, Chase, Malonis, Handsome, Biff. I think I mentioned Taven already, but all those guys, Tommaso too. But you had all those guys, and like, Sherman still floated. And you got to give him credit. Like, people don't want to, but I do give him credit, especially at that time. Like,
Sherman not only floated, but he rose above everyone, and he was one of the most over guys in Chaotic Wrestling. Right. Literally one of the most over guys. I hadn't seen anyone that over since Chase was like the babyface when I started wrestling.
Right.
Like, he was getting fucking pops, and because he wasn't the Shawn Michaels in the ring, people hated him in the locker room for it. They hated the fact that he could get over, say a catchphrase, and crowd would lose their shit. They hated it. And I don't understand it. I really don't. Everyone is so reluctant to give him credit. I don't fucking understand it. But
all right, so going back to some of the things you said, you put a lot of effort, it feels like, over the years with characters, and you seem almost obsessed with a character. Has anybody ever pitched, or you ever said, maybe I should just be Cam Sagami, maybe I should just be a wrestler? Like,
I have.
I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just asking.
No, I've definitely thought about that. I think a lot last year was just like I was just a more evolved version of myself, especially in 2018. Like when I was tag team champions with Robbie E. Being able to like team with a guy like Robbie, he's just so great at putting together
current
matches.
WWE referee, if I'm not mistaken.
no,
Manager.
he is a manager.
Oh, he's a manager now.
Robert Stone on NXT. But he was very helpful as far as calling spots and being able to, I would be spitballing ideas, brainstorming ideas, and he was able to take a spot I would call, make it more effective and simpler. And I was always so like wowed by that. And even Ken Doan in Beyond, he does the same thing, where you call different ideas and he goes, "Well, do this instead of that," and it definitely plays off because you can hear the crowd and you're like, okay, well, if I did what I was originally going to do, it wouldn't have made sense. So I was very lucky. Been very lucky to, especially guys with like past TV experience, especially in WWE, like they know what they're doing, or guys who have been on TV. Like I've been very lucky to work with them. But yeah, I mean, realistically, like I've always thought like Club Cam's been like a big success so far, and obviously I could be doing more with it, and I should be. But however, it has been very successful so far, and just being able to kind of like not being afraid to laugh at yourself. Like I'm dressed like a fool. I'm managing fools, right? And being managed by fools. So it's like, for me, if I don't get a spot in, it's not the end of the world. I was at Top Rope a few weeks ago, and it was me and some other kid versus Devil's Reject and Boogeyman. Boogeyman did not like the fact that he was wrestling in a tag match, and he got upset. So I went up to the promoter, and I'm like, hey, we need to fix this. And the promoter was stressed out. He goes, you know what? I trust you. You deal with it. I said, okay, great. I said, hey, here's what we're doing. I'm going to manage this kid against Devil's Reject, right? Devil's Reject is going to go up clean. Then we're going to jump him. Bam, bam, bam. I'm going to take the microphone. The cue is nobody's bigger, badder, or scarier than Club Cam. And then Boogeyman comes out. Then he does his shtick, and then he goes home. And Boogeyman's like, I like that. And after we did that, he pulled me aside. He goes, you're a smart kid. I like the way you think. So just being able to understand different situations, especially in locker rooms, being able to understand different situations and like being less selfish to help the greater good of like the segment, it helps by a lot. So I was like, you know what? I'll take myself out of this wrestling match just so everybody can keep the peace, sort of thing. Especially when you're dealing with names who like aren't happy. That's never a good experience in a locker room.
So in the past, you had like the Son of All. I think for like 2 shows ever, you were Cursed Cam.
That was like the same thing.
Yeah. So you were just trying to find your niche with this. But I feel like, and we always had this talk privately when I feel like you put more work into your look and your outfits more than character development.
Absolutely.
And I feel like you finally have put some work into character development. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the earlier promos of Club Cam and the way you've morphed your look, it looks like you developed closer to like the character development and how you want to approach things and talk and act, and then started adding to the sleazy look of Club Cam. Am I correct?
Right. So a lot of that was just kind of like, you know, what's funny is like, I actually hate like going out to nightclubs. Like it's loud, it's noisy. There's so many people.
It's so annoying.
It's stressful. It's stressful because I just feel like there's always that like impending sense of somebody wants to fight somebody else if they look at each other the wrong way.
Yeah.
So you just sit there awkwardly and you're expected to talk to women. But if you approach a woman who like actually has like a boyfriend or like doesn't want to be approached, and like all her friends come after her, like it just, you know, so messy. So messy. And like I actually don't like clubs, but like from my experience in them, like seeing that just that sleazeball who like, you know, does it every weekend. The way he talks, the way he acts, the way he moves his body language, the way he, you know, calls over other people, and just, you know, one of the things is like, I don't want to be a club promoter. Like I want to take club promoter characteristics and mix them in with Cam. Because if I'm just, anybody can be a club promoter, but it's up to me to be Club Cam. Because like, okay, there's certain things, preferences I like, and then like certain things that I would do as a club promoter. So it's not like I'm just, again, taking an occupation and being it. It's like, okay, what would I do as like a dentist? Like, you know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what was the first time the world saw Club Cam, whether it be a match, a video? What was the first thing that you actually put out to the world, Club Cam?
So I was at Liberty States, and I had two of the students bring out my red velvet ropes. I had this weird techno song.
So this is before a video or anything?
Yeah. So this is like Liberty States, which was you know, small promotion in Massachusetts.
Yeah, we had their owner, Todd Sopel, on the show.
was on the show.
Okay, all right. Did I and just to deviate a little bit, did he speak of me?
No.
No, he did not, actually.
Wow. Okay, because you know, I actually asked him if I could have the building to run in.
Yeah.
And he was very upset with me, and basically said no.
Well, I mean, I assume because he's planning on going back someday when Buddy Romano takes his meds.
I didn't want to get involved in that situation. I just saw the big Facebook post of, I don't care about wrestling and I quit and I'm not running shows anymore. So I go, okay, well, if you're not going to, because Liberty States is a great opportunity for guys to have, you know, spots on shows, or, you know, it has a little bit of a following. It's established as a wrestling venue. Why were we going to lose that? Why are we going to waste that opportunity? And, you know, he just came back at me as like, you're not being sensitive enough. Like, have you ever heard of, you know, being sympathetic? And I was like, okay. So I was just like, all right, forget it. But, anyway, as far as Club Cam goes, like that was the first time, I have made minor tweaks and adjustments to it, especially as I've kind of developed. You know, I had like weirder pants. I had, you know, a different blazer, and just kind of understanding like how I can fit. Because originally when I started, I go, Club Cam's going to be a wrestler. Club Cam ended up being like a better manager and a better character on a show that people like are invested in just as much as any other wrestler.
But how was that first night? How was the reaction, both from fans and the boys?
I think the first reaction was they liked it, and there was a lot of potential to it. I just think I needed to call a little bit more like character spots in a way. As far as like having, you know, I need my quote unquote 5 moves of doom, you know.
Has anyone been super constructive or super negative about it since you've been doing it? How long have you been doing it? What, now?
Since like May.
Okay.
May or June, yeah. So for, you know, a few months now, is when I really started kicking off and beyond, and kind of like gaining my stable of VIPs. That's when it really kicked off, and it's been going really well, and I get great heat, and just being able to tell a story with it, with the faction, kind of got to, you know, the way we're doing it and beyond right now is that you have to prove your place in Club Cam, because if you lose, then you're out of Club Cam. You're not a VIP.
Yeah.
You're not worthy of being in my club if you can't win your match, if you can't fulfill your role. So that's been super. It's been super successful. But as far as like, you know, character things go, as far as in the ring wise, still something I'm like kind of working on. You know, I have different ideas, and different catchphrase. I know it needs more than catchphrases, but again, like that saying, like, and then the bell rings, like, I think it's definitely there though.
You don't feel like your wrestling's up to par with the gimmick right now?
No, it's not.
Okay. Do you? I guess I should ask. Do you? What kind of style of wrestling do you want to be? Do you want to be with like every other independent wrestler nowadays, where they're doing all these high spots and all this stuff, or do you want to wrestle a more story-driven gimmick type match?
I've always wanted to do a more story-driven match. Especially when I go back and watch matches now, like being older, I go back and watch like early Brian Kendrick. Early stuff like that, like when he was the Brian Kendrick, or like Scotty 2 Hotty, or like Grandmaster Sexay, or even like Rick Martel, watching some Bobby Heenan as well, and just taking a little bit of like what I like from each of those and kind of taking them and making them my own, because a lot of those guys, they are my size, they had these outrageous characters, and they were still able to tell a story in the ring.
So you mentioned earlier the booking's dropping off. Have they picked up now that the Club Cam thing is on its way?
Yeah, Beyond has been great. I think a lot of places need to be. Here's the thing: is a lot of places need to be sold on Club Cam, and you need some sort of value proposition as far as, hey, here's why this would work here. But yeah, I mean, like Lucky Pro has tried it and liked it. Top Rope, Beyond is like my primary. It's literally like my home
that's
promotion
surprising.
now.
I assumed everybody's attitude would be, if it's good enough for Beyond, it's good enough for me. That's naturally that's the conclusion I jumped to the minute I heard Beyond was using you.
Yeah, and it's definitely strange. For a lot of other places, I really need to like pitch myself, which I just find weird, because like there's other places in the area I've wrestled for years, and now that I'm like kind of taking off with the character, they're hesitant, and I'm like, what do you're really going to lose? What do you have to lose? Like,
it goes back to what we said before, where we said like managers are a dying brand.
Yes.
I think right now you're heavily based as a manager.
Yeah, I am.
And promoters are very much like let me get the best deal for my dollar. And so if you had that gimmick and you were wrestling, they'd 100% be like, I'm all for Club Cam, because now I'm getting an entertainment manager and I'm getting a wrestler. That's all they want.
I think a lot of the reasons why wrestling or managers are like not a thing, or like a lost art, so to speak, is because like a lot of managers today are just, be honest, they're just failed wrestlers. They're guys who were in a wrestling school and they tried it out, and the wrestling part wasn't for them, but they still wanted to be a part of wrestling, so they got into a manager role. But that doesn't mean that they can, I don't think it's as easy as just being able to go out there and be a manager. There's a lot to it that people don't get. Especially like when I manage Christian, I do like to, because obviously like, I've had the psychology, I've been a wrestler, so I know where to insert myself in different places if need be, where a regular, I guess, untrained, I don't know, maybe not untrained is the wrong word, but a manager who doesn't have wrestling experience, who hasn't been a wrestler, wouldn't understand.
Funny you should bring that up, because on the managers episode of Truth, Justice, and New England Pro Wrestling, it's the only time your name's been brought up. We hear you have a very difficult time finding the hard cam.
It was actually the match that you did manage Christian, and your back was to the hard cam the entire time, and then the only time you actually turned around to acknowledge the fans was the side that none of the fans are on. You are well.
What show is this?
I don't know. I think
It was Beyond.
show.
I don't know the exact show, but we were told it was.
Well,
Beyond.
the fans were all around the other side of the ring, so it's either like I insert myself with the fans, or I put myself to the hard cam. So what I've started to do now is kind of just be turned, so my back isn't to the side. You kind of see like my side profile.
Yep.
But I do like to be on the hard cam side, because the ring, the other three sides all have fans.
Typically, and this is where Beyond Wrestling, this is what was touched upon, Joe Eastman touched upon, was he doesn't like to do manager stuff at Beyond because they don't have guardrails, because there are fans around the ring. And it takes away from that magic of not being able to touch a manager. Now, a big thing that's practiced with managers is you are to stand opposite of hard, or not on the side of hard cam, but opposite of hard cam, so that way they can see your face. If they just see your back the whole time, I can't. Similar to when people hold on a hold, and we always tell you turn towards hard cam so people on TV could see you.
Yeah.
If your back's to the hard cam while you're holding the hold, all I'm seeing is two bodies moving and some body motion, but I'm not seeing any reactions on your face.
Right.
So that's what that was. That's what got brought
So
up.
you'd say that's exaggerated? Is that what you're saying?
Well, for when I first started, when I first started managing, I think but now I think it's more of just, finding my own beat in a way, especially being on hard cam, and also, also not being touched, because like you said, like when the manager's touched, like the heat's gone, it's gone. And it's funny because like a lot of guys just don't get that. A lot of guys, like I've managed a lot, and like it might come off as selfish when I'm like, you can't touch me. Like,
where did you find the rope gimmick, the club rope gimmick?
Bought it on eBay.
So how come you don't buy an extension?
For what?
So when you're managing, right, somewhere like Beyond, you get your rope gimmick, but it's in the form of a box. Obviously, the other side's going to be like the ring. So you have the ring apron, right, as your box one, and then you have rope. So you rope yourself in, and the fans can't get to you because they can't cross the rope. But you manage that whole box the whole time during a match. So now you can manage on hard cam, but you're the only person in your own club.
Huh.
Doesn't sound like that impressed.
I honestly, it's funny because I have two of those because they came in a 2-pack. So I have one set of stanchions at home in my closet, and then another is just like in my car right now.
Yeah. Anytime you got to turn on
anytime, you never know where club cam's going to show up.
But seriously, like if that's a place so you can be on hard cam the whole time, if you create, you know what I mean? Like you bring it out, you set it up, or you have, stagehands set it up where you are, not only do you cross the rope to get out the entrance or whatever, but then you also have your own box set up right by, you're literally at the apron, but you give yourself enough room that you can do like managerial walkarounds, but you're on hard cam side, and allows you to, you'll have the gimmick set up, but also it allows the fans to stay away because now you'll have these structures backing them up a bit.
So all I need is 2.
You would do one, just 2 posts, but you would need a rope. No, you would need 4 because you would have to do 1, 2, which would be your back.
Oh, so I would need to bring a third rope. Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Because you would be 1, 2, and then 3, 4, but these 2 would be closest to the apron.
I get you. Yeah. No, I've been thinking about different character developments and just, evolving a character, especially when shows are being done on a weekly basis. I think it's important to think that, things that would have been done in, a year are now being done in, 6 weeks at Beyond, especially because they run on such an aggressive schedule of weekly shows, which is something that no other indie promotion is doing right now.
Yeah.
So, what's being done, what has been done in a year for other shows is now being done in like 6 weeks for Beyond. So character development and evolutions have to come a little bit quicker because of that.
All right, so before we get to the wrap-up, I feel that we can't leave without discussing American Grit.
Ooh.
Back in 2016, you were on the Fox reality show American Grit.
I was.
How'd that come about?
Well, it's funny because I failed at Tough Enough. I remember, I don't know if you guys saw my video, but that was like the hairspray, and I had like on my little polo shirt.
Oh, we all did a Tough Enough video.
Yeah, everybody did a Tough Enough video. Mine was one of the better ones. A lot of guys were like, oh, like and share my Tough Enough video. And they were all, oh, I have heart, I have determination, and look at me, I work so hard. They all sucked. Sherman had a good one. I know that. I can't think of too many other ones that I really liked, but yeah, Sherman had a good one. I had a good one.
But American Grit. How'd that become?
Yeah. So Tough Enough said no. Basically, Tough Enough said no.
Apparently, it wasn't that good because Tough Enough said no.
Yeah. I got it to like the 3rd round of casting or whatever. But so they told me no. And then I was just trying out for just like different I was like, well, maybe I can still try reality shows or something. So like I got an email about like being America's toughest. Are you America's toughest? Sign up now. I'm like, whatever. I have nothing to lose. Signed up. A few weeks later, they're like, hey, can we get a phone call with you? I'm like, I guess. I was just so like at that point I was just so annoyed and like didn't really
Weren't
know.
motivated by anything.
Wasn't motivated. I wasn't really sure where I was going with my life because I was like midway through college and like just unsure of a lot of things. So I was like, sure. And I was just super sarcastic and cocky on the Skype call. And the lady goes, "Oh my God, like you're so funny. We'd love to fly you out to LA." And I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah. Like it's probably gonna happen. Like you'll get an email with the plane ticket." I'm like, all right, I'll be waiting. And then it actually happened, and I was like, "Oh boy, what am I doing?" So then, like, I fly out there, and I do the casting, and like I'm still just me. And like one of the producers comes in my room, and she goes, "Oh my God, you're Cam. We're so excited to meet you." Because like I guess I'm just a fascinating person to talk to.
You don't say.
And they sat me down with all the other producers, and they were asking me weird questions and just different things, trying to like just poke and prod at me, sort of thing. So like the last day of casting, the director sat me down and was like, "We're gonna be moving pretty fast with this, and we're gonna come out this week and film you doing some B-roll stuff." And I was like, "Okay, sure, great." And then like they were like, "Hey, you're on," and I'm like, "Okay." They didn't tell me it was John Cena hosting until like the actual episode where they're like, "All right, walk on in a straight line," and I was like, "Okay," and then like, "All right, do it again." And like when we did it again, it was like John Cena was right there. I was like, what? I'm thinking, it's funny because I'm like, I knew it was on Fox, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this must be, it must be some weird celebrity as far as like, maybe it's like a Patriots player or just like, I know nothing about sports.
Yeah.
Maybe it's some weird Patriots player who I'm supposed to be impressed by, or like some BS like that. But no, it was John Cena, and he was really cool to talk to. He was great, very genuine guy. Looked out for me, I would say. Like gave me some like pointers and advice as far as just like not being a complete douche, which he helped me with. One time he asked, I said something in the house, and he goes, "Why did you say that?" I go, "Because I wanted to ask for forgiveness instead of permission." And he goes, "Okay, but if you're going to do that, you better do it with 110% conviction or you don't do it at all." And it stuck with me. I was like, okay. Coming from a guy who's like, a multimillionaire. All right, some words to live by. But he was also like in front of the cameras, he would say like, obviously they play it up.
Yeah.
So like you could tell when you can tell when everybody was like on and off sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like on the cameras, he goes, "Never give up isn't just a slogan on my t-shirt, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, okay, all right. Easy.
Yeah, you're on TV, dude.
I'm like, promo time. We're live on Raw.
All right, so American Grit didn't exactly work out for you.
No. So I fell in love on the show, and she dumped-
Legit?
Yeah.
Okay.
She dumped me. She dated an American Ninja Warrior.
It sounds like a bad sitcom or something.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know the guy, but I don't like that show now. It's funny. It's like that year, 2016. Like I was dumped, and like I was like, oh well, I definitely have a WWE tryout now. Nope, that didn't happen either. So like honestly, it was a good time for me because like I needed to be knocked down a few pegs. I needed to learn some humility, and I'm glad I experienced that at 21 rather than later in life when most people do. So because of that, I was very grateful for that, and honestly, it helped me develop appreciation for other people's success.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Because a lot of the times when other people are successful, especially in wrestling, people immediately gut reaction is to get jealous and to hate on it. But for me, after I experienced that, I was able to appreciate other people's success and genuinely be happy for their success. And I tell people this all the time. I'm not jealous of any of my friends who've gone on to make it. I understand the effort, the sacrifice, the time, the money spent, the family occasions, friends they've missed out on to make it to where they are. They should, the cool thing about that is, about anything really, is that like if you want something bad enough, you can choose whatever sacrifice. Like, it's completely up to you, right? You are in control of your life. Of you get to control what sacrifice you're going to make to get what you want. That's all you. And I don't think people understand that. So it's really cool to see people who are successful and who go on to make it. It's great.
The show open any doors for you?
It actually didn't. Not too much.
Not even like an agent or anything tried to sign
No, because
like
I for a while I was like, well, maybe I should do more reality shows, and that wasn't the answer. And I was just trying to think of what else I could do, but I mean, really, it was just a one and done.
You could have wore a mask. I heard we could have wore a mask.
Dude, I mean, you looking back, would you do it again if you had done it? Like, knowing what you know now, would you have still done the show?
If I was 25 years old, if the Cam Zagami right now, like today, currently, right here, would be on American Grit. Like, if that show happened right now, when I'm me, I would have won.
Okay,
undoubtedly, I undoubtedly would have won.
And did you get any new friends because of American Grit?
Met some nice people.
It's friends in quotation.
Yeah. Friends are definitely in quotation marks. There's definitely some good people from the show, but none that are friends. There are people who have been great to me, but it's not like we talk every day. I haven't talked to any of them in years.
What he's asking is did anyone start trying to cash in on your fame and all of a sudden wanted to become your friend who would never at one point talk to you?
Oh, I did get a lot of that. I did get a lot of that, and it was different. It was strange, Like, that was when a lot of wrestling places, wrestling promotions were booking me that like usually wouldn't book me, but I was grateful for it. I'm like, you know what, I just gotta keep running with it. It was the guys who were like tongue in cheek, like, "Oh, congratulations, superstar." I was like, "Yeah, thanks." Like, it was so tongue in cheek, like, "Oh, congrats, superstar! Like, you made it, huh? You made it." And I was like, "That's weird. Like, I'm still paying bills, guys. Like, like." It was just very strange.
Well, wrestling is very strike while the iron's hot, so I can't blame anyone for trying to capitalize on your appearance on Fox Television. It's not like you're on cable access. So
so we discussed this before we actually went on the podcast. Before we start getting into the wrap up here, Tarzan and myself both agree. I told you to your face, and I know you don't believe it based on all the past reactions of past gimmicks you've done where people shit on everything. Tarzan and I honestly believe that Club Cam is your niche. You seem to, a lot of times when you're talking, you seem pretty genuine in what you're saying. It's entertaining to watch. It seems a little batshit craziest, but also like I'm curious to see where it goes. I think this gimmick has a lot of potential. I don't think you should ever stray away from it,
right?
Or listen to anyone that shits on it,
right?
Now to play on that. Because there's a lot of potential and there are people like Beyond Wrestling who want to book that gimmick for places that do not book you. What would you say to them, or what would be the reasoning as to why they don't want to?
So as far as like a value proposition for myself, I think it's because I'm one of the few gimmicks today, right? Like, everybody knows, like, I show up to the show in a fucking Hyundai. I'm not a club promoter.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. That's why I've always hated like the rich character gimmick, is because like you can't talk about how rich you are and how much money you have when you show up to the show in a Toyota Corolla, right? Like, it's just, then fans are like, oh, okay. Like, it never made sense for me. But like, for that, like, I don't go out at intermissions. I don't sell merch as a heel. The only time you see me is when like I'm on my segment. Like, I have my match. Like, I think there's definitely a lost art in like a lot of that.
But what would you say to, I'm going to use them as an example just because they're most local, most prevalent into most subjects. But the only one I know that does not use you right now is Chaotic Wrestling.
Yes.
What would you say, because like I said, any good promoter should be able to turn that gimmick, who's very entertaining, into something big. What would you say is the reason why they would not want to use you?
That's a good question. Honestly, that's a really, really good question. I don't know. Chaotic's just a different place now. It's not what it used to be. I'm not saying like better or worse. It's just different. Especially when I was there recently just to show face and say hi to everybody. But Yeah, it's definitely different. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm not one of their core students anymore. Chase and Fury have different flavors as far as different flavors of the week, as far as who's showing up to class versus that. This person shows up to class and we'll give him a spot here and here, and like we can kind of craft and make it rather than like pick up the broken pieces of Cam and like try to shamble them together.
Do you think they have a vision for you?
I don't think they do.
How come?
Because they don't have one. They don't really have one for like AG, and a lot of other characters that are on the show that, especially like Richard Holiday. I think like he should be like a top heel there.
I 100% agree with you. He's the only guy on that show that actually draws any legitimate heat when he walks out. I don't know if you've been to a show, but when Richard Holiday walks through a curtain, place goes fucking ape shit for it. They hate him. They hate him.
That's how it is.
Hate him to death. Yeah. And if he comes across as boring, great. That means you've now drawn a guy that you hate, which is exactly what he's supposed to be doing. So
I'd have him win the Chaotic Championship.
I would too, and I would have your top babyface chase him. But
it's weird you said about coming to class, because we had Brian on the show and he really emphasized that he wants to keep his school a separate entity from Chaotic. Now you're saying that coming to class has something to do with them getting booked on the show?
Oh yeah, absolutely it does. Absolutely. Just not for me. Absolutely it does. They're very high. I'll be honest, they're very, very high on Charlie Cashew and Ricky Archer.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because Fury and Chase can mold those two kids into being indie stars.
Okay.
Or they can take it to the next step.
Because they're not exactly the shining personalities of the world. You know what I mean?
That's another thing too, is because I've seen their promos, and I pride myself in being a promo guy, especially like when I can think about it beforehand and like execution wise. Promos on the fly, like whatever. That's another thing. Like obviously, I'm going to have my staple phrases I'm going to say in a promo on the fly, and it's just for them. Like I've seen their promos, like. They need work. I've told them like, and I think Rick, like those two kids know, like, I get the whole, like, they have like little characters, but they're not gimmicks. Right. So especially those kids, I'm like, you're going to have to be indie wrestlers, which is what you want to be. Especially because I see them go at drills at class and I'm like, yep, they want to be indie wrestlers. Like that's, good kids.
All right. So Julian, you know what time it is.
I do.
It's time for
the Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four.
Cam Zagami, my man, Club Cam. The Fantastic Four is a series of questions that we ask all of our guests here on the show of Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. So we're going to go ahead and hit you with the easiest one of all. Question 1. As your dealings as a professional wrestler in New England, what would you say that you are most proud of?
As a wrestler?
Just, with your entire dealings. I mean, you've been a wrestler, you've been a manager. You haven't done refereeing, but so what your entire dealings, like out of your whole career in wrestling, what would you say you were most proud of?
Of like accomplishments, or you're just
whatever.
Honestly, I'm going to say
professional wrestling, what are you the most proud of that you did?
I think I'm going to have to say my my versatility, just to be able to be put in situations and adapt to them, and being able to play a wide array of characters. I've been very flexible with a lot of different positions I've been given, and a lot of different opportunities that I've been given as well, and just taking those and making the best out of them.
All right, question 2. So far in your dealings with professional wrestling, what would you say, if any, is your biggest regret?
My biggest regret in wrestling? That's a good one. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say. I don't know if there's anything I look back on and I'm like, oh man, I regret. Like I don't regret ever not going to like a seminar. I think, what would I regret?
You can say nothing. Sheldon said nothing when he was on the
Sheldon
show.
doesn't
if you
regret
really
anything.
don't think you have any regrets, then feel free to say nothing.
Yeah, no, I don't. As far as wrestling goes, like I think, not going to say like, oh, everything happens for a reason, but like there's nothing that jumps out to me like, oh my God, my life would be so different if only I accepted this booking right here then,
Or did this thing or made this move. So
Yeah,
you
no.
don't really have any regrets. You kind of
I don't have any regrets, no.
All right. Third question, which is always my fave. out of your entire dealings as a professional wrestler, sir, I'm going to allow you to get everything that has ever bothered you off your chest.
Ooh.
In your entire dealings of professional wrestling, who would you say you hate or strongly dislike the most, and will you name them?
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of people like I just don't like.
Go for it.
I'm very professional with.
Go for it.
You ever hear about that whole situation with like me and Jose Garcia?
Oh, I thought I was going to say Lothario.
I have not.
No, Jose Garcia.
Yeah. So I mean, what happened is I've explained this to a few people before, but for whatever reason, the guy just like doesn't like me. What happened was we were backstage at Raw. Yeah, it was Raw. Backstage at Raw. And it was my first time I was ever there, right? I was 21 years old, just got off the American Grit, and I'm freaking out. Like, you're naturally nervous at TV the first time you're there. You know what it's like. You're walking on eggshells.
Yep.
You want to be there, but not in the way, but not hiding. And you're just so anxious. So we're in the catering, and everybody's eating, and I'm like, I don't know where to sit. I'm just, it's like first day of school, sort of like just this weird anxiety.
I get you.
So then we see like Jose, and we go over, we say hi to like him and his family, and like we're talking, whatever. And then he says, "Oh yeah, nice seeing you." And then at that same time, Devon sits down. And so like we were on, it was a circular table. AG went up to him and shook his hand like as he was about to eat, and I just nodded because the man's about to eat. I'm not going to interrupt him eating.
Yep.
That's not like a wrestling thing. That's just like a person etiquette thing. Like, these guys have been traveling. They've been on the road. They're hungry.
All right. So just to clarify, Jose Perez is Jose Garcia. So most people who know him in the independent business or in professional wrestling as Jose Perez. But go ahead. Continue.
Right. So AG, we're on the opposite side of Devon. AG's a little bit over to my left. So he's closer to Devon. He really quickly grabs a handshake right before he's about to eat. I knew, and with these guys, they've been traveling, they've been wrestling, they're on the road, they're tired, they're trying to eat a meal. Am I really going to be an extra to insert myself over his plate? Right. So the window closed. He was about to eat. I nodded like a hello, and I walked away.
Okay.
So we're sitting in the stands. And Danny Miles says to me, he goes, "Whoa, did you guys just see Jose Perez's Facebook status?" And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" So Jose wrote this status, something along the lines of, "I can't believe young kids just show so much disrespect to veterans, not shaking hands, the amount of disrespect. They belong on the other side of the guardrail. I can't believe what I just witnessed. I'm so disgusted right now." And I looked at AG and Danny Miles, and I was like, "Did he just really do that to me? Like, what? What?" Like, I was so thrown off, and now I'm like beyond panicking because I'm like, "Oh my God, did I just piss off Devon? Like, I'm just trying to do the right thing here." I'm freaking out, and then people are obviously commenting on it, like, "Oh, what a piece of shit." Yeah, I agree. So like, then everybody's like, "Oh, Cam has heat with Devon, blah, blah, blah." So it's now like the running joke of the day.
But that would be the guy that you say Jose Perez you don't really like.
Well, I got to explain the rest.
Okay, go
real
ahead.
quick. So the next day I go up to Devon and I apologize. Like, I'm like, "Hey, I'm so sorry you were eating yesterday. Like, I'm so sorry I didn't shake your hand." He laughs. He's like, "Oh yeah." He just laughs. He goes, No, it's fine." I'm like, "Yeah, Jose, like, I got some, I should have shook in your hand. I'm sorry." And he was just laughing about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, whatever."
Yeah, because oh my God, I'm going to get in a fucking rant.
So what happened was I went to an XWA class and I said to Jose, I go, "Hey, can I pull you aside real quick?" He goes, "Sure." I go, "Look, I just want to apologize." So what happened was he wrote that Facebook status. He then messaged Fury saying that I like disrespected Devon. And Fury pulled me aside that class one night. He goes, "What happened?" And I explained to him. He goes, "Okay, well, whatever. Like, just be more careful next time, I guess." Like, Fury shrugged it off, whatever. I went to XWA. I went to that class and I asked Jose, I go, "Hey, can I talk to you one-on-one for a second?" I go, "Hey, look, I apologize. I didn't mean to come off as disrespectful. It was my first time at TV. I was nervous. I didn't really know what to do. I didn't want to interrupt him when he was eating. And, I'm sorry I didn't shake his hand." But Jose just wouldn't accept my apology. He goes, "You were wrong. You shouldn't have done that." I said to him, he shook his head. He was shaking his head. He was angry when he walked away. And again, I tried to profusely apologize, tried to have him see like where I'm coming from. And he goes, just out of the blue, he goes, "Well, you're lucky it wasn't Bubba, because he would have smacked the shit out of you. And I wish I saw that," or like something along those lines. And I was like, okay, well, I just wanted to, talk to you about this because I saw your Facebook status and just, again, wanted to say something. And that was that. And, I really haven't talked to him since. I just thought it was so strange. I was like, I just found it was so strange. If he really wanted to be helpful or really wanted to be any sort of give me advice, he would have messaged me and said, "Hey, make sure you shake Devon's hand," if it was that big of a deal. But I mean, I hate handshakes anyway in wrestling.
It's fucking stupid.
Yes,
I've hated the fucking handshake thing forever. Who in this fucking world goes to work and goes, "Hey, Jim. Hey, Tom. Hey, Sally. Hey, fucking Tim. All right, let's all go to work now." No one fucking does that. I don't know. This is an old school fucking thing that happened years ago. Let it go.
Right.
Okay? I don't understand why these fucking old school indie guys or anyone has to be like, "Oh, you didn't shake my hand. Fucking go to hell, asshole." It's a fucking old shtick. Let it go. It's not a fucking thing anymore. That's why Devon laughed in your face, because he's like, "Who the fuck cares?" Like, who the fuck cares? He was not fucking mad at you. He's just trying to make his fucking point so he doesn't look like an asshole for posting some fucking dramatic Facebook status. Fuck.
That's a good, that leads to good. We should do a poll on our Facebook page. Go to our Facebook or Twitter. We want to hear from you. How important do you think the handshake is? We want to hear from you on it.
It's not at all. It's fucking stupid. Fucking wave, act like normal human beings, say hi to each other in passing, maybe give a hug or two, but you don't have to fucking run up to everyone and be like, "All right, let me make sure I got everyone so I don't lose my fucking booking."
Go to Facebook to Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way, or follow us on Twitter at
Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.
And give us your opinion.
We're on Twitter. We're at Pro Wrestling Way.
And give us your opinion on the handshake. We want to hear from you. Question 4, Cam.
The final.
What does the future hold for Cam Zagami?
For Cam Zagami, I think right now I just need to branch out a little bit more as Club Cam. I think I need to get back into more of a wrestling role. But, sometimes I question myself. I go, is Club Cam the end? Is Club Cam it for me? I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say yes because I like evolving. I like changing. I like being different characters. I still have a few ideas. Like I like rumbling around. But I think Club Cam is definitely here to stay.
This has been I want to thank you for joining us in the show.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a different episode.
It's been different. We're a little off the rails. I'm sorry I just lost my fucking cool. I'm not shitting you when I say the handshake bit with fucking people feeling disrespected because of it pisses me the fuck off more than anything in the world. If you literally get sour on the fact that I didn't come shake your fucking hand, I hope you die in a car crash because you're a fucking you think too highly of yourself. Go fuck yourself, okay? Seriously. I cannot fucking stand that more than anything in the world.
Well, this is I really do want to hear. Go to our social media and give your 2 cents on this subject. See if you agree with Julian or if he's overreacting right now. Speaking of social media, where can people find Cam Zagami on social media?
Well, at Welcome to Club Cam would probably be the best one.
All right.
Wait, hold on. You're saying Instagram?
Yes.
Okay, so at Club Cam.
At Welcome to Club Cam.
At Welcome to Club Cam is where you can find Cam Zagami. Cam, I need more content, sir, because your gimmick is fantastic.
Thank you.
I believe there's tons of potential for it. I believe once you start figuring out how you exactly want to wrestle, I think my opinion about it is that gimmick could actually be similar to Retrosexual AG's gimmick, where your gimmick is your persona, but your matches don't have to surround a specific spot that require, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to have a spot that requires, like, by the way, I'm Club Cam. I think once you've established your character, the gimmick will just play itself.
Yeah, I think so too. I think
you just get back in the ring, start honing that craft, get back into the swing of things, and try to fix your match structures and stuff, and just get some more content out there. The character will take care of everything else.
Definitely.
All right, free plug time. Where can people buy a ticket to see Cam Zagami, or Club Cam, I should say, on a wrestling show?
It would be at Beyond Wrestling's Uncharted Territory every Thursday night, live in Worcester at the White Eagle, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Or you can tune in on iwtv.live. You can get a streaming subscription service and watch live right from the comfort of your home.
All right. No other? You only wrestling and Beyond in November?
Yes.
Okay.
Cam's just gone super weird.
All right. I do legit. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah,
I hope
thank
you come
you, Cam.
back sometime.
Thank you, guys.
And want to thank everyone for listening yet again. Julian, I know we did it, but can you one last time plug our social media?
Yes, as always, ladies and gentlemen, please follow us on Facebook. We are at Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. Give us a like. We'll go ahead and ask questions and do any kind of follow-ups to our show. Or we're trying to stay on top of the New England scene. It's a little hard because there's a lot going on. You can follow us on Twitter at Pro Wrestling Way. Very similar updates as the Facebook. However, whatever platform fits your fancy, that's where you'll find us. And as always, you can download us on any major podcasting app that you see fit. Please like, subscribe, and move us up the ladder as we are trying to become one of the top podcasts in the world, if not New England itself. And give us some feedback of any kind. If, someone left some feedback on the sound quality, said I was pushing it a little too hard. I'm not 100% sure what that means. If you can elaborate, I would like that. I'm not exactly a pro at this sound stuff. I'm trying to just pick it up as I go. But any kind of feedback at all. Someone left feedback on sound. I highly appreciate that. Just help me out as we go. If our content is all over the map, if the structure is not easy to follow, if we're going too long, if you want shorter podcasts, if you want them weekly, whatever, just give us feedback so we can help improve this to be the best listening experience for you.
All right. And as always, yes, we do want to hear from you. We want your opinions. Did you agree with Cam? Do you disagree with Cam? Were we too nice to Cam? Were we not mean enough to him?
I can't wait to hear it all.
Would you like different guests, different topics? Whatever the case may be, we want to hear from you. We welcome all and any opinions. Please give us your input. And, any future guests you might like to hear. Well, it's been an interesting episode. I promise next time Julian's going to be a little more calm.
Yeah, dude, I'm not... It's going to sound like a gimmick, but I'm not shitting you. That bit pisses me off more than anything in the world. The people that think highly of themselves fucking...
No. Thank you again for joining us for another episode. Please join us again next time for another episode of Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.